that is not proper for anybody in law enforcement to do that.
But is it legal for the FBI to come into your county and extradite someone without your permission, especially for January 6th arrests? Have you had anybody in your county arrested for January 6th? Can the FBI come in and take them to Washington, D.C., or take them out of the state without the sheriff's permission?
I got to double check on that, but I got to see, because if you go look at the courts, they're divided up in districts too within the state, and throughout the country they're divided that the federal courts are. So I got to check to see if they got to go through us for the extradition, or if they got to go through that federal court's jurisdiction. But I know there's something that has to get done there. So I got to double check on that, because there's a reason why we have those checks and balances like that.
What's the most important thing? Last question. Like, what do you really care about the most right now?
Basically keeping government under control. It seems to be out of control. You see the weaponizing of the DOJ. That's got to be reeled in. Some of the stuff that happened with me and this investigation and my deputies that were working on it, that was out of line.
What are they investigating you for?
Who knows?
They don't even know.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if they know, or I don't know, but when I spoke out on that plot, I'm pretty sure that kind of put some red flags up on him to where, oh, he's part of this plot. No, not
The
even
plot
close.
with the governor?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Had I known those guys from my county were even getting that close to something like that, they would have found my boot.
So basically, the FBI could try to set people up.
Yeah, and I would hope they wouldn't do that. But I'm hearing more and more of it. I'm hearing stuff from people working with members of Congress that there's a reason why they have that J6 committee looking into all that. And if that's a sad day. Those people who were doing that need to be locked up.
Okay, well, I think it's really important that all young men and young women realize that being a sheriff is a real career, a real profession, and it's one of the most important careers you could ever have in your life. Did I say that right?
Oh yeah, it's outstanding, because we're here in Berry County. The sheriff is in charge, obviously, law enforcement. He's the chief law enforcement and officer and the chief conservator of the peace. And sheriff, actually, we focus more on keeping the peace than we are enforcing all these statutes that come across from the state. We have full discretion on how we want to run our county and maintain the peace. And then the other thing too is, what is law enforcement? Does that mean we go out and arrest somebody and run them up through the courts? Or like a few years ago, pulled a guy over, and he was 21 years old, just got his first pistol, took it out to the range, shot up all their ammunition. Well, I pulled him on over, and he put the gun on the back seat of his car right next to the box that he bought it in. And he forgot it there, because after he got done shooting, he was talking to a friend of his, and it was getting late, so I had to get home. So the enforcement I did is made him put it in the box and put it in his trunk where it belongs. Didn't have to take him up through the courts. And that's the difference between a peace officer and a police officer. So, and the sheriff has full discretion on that. But that's an enforcement action. I made him take the gun, put it in the trunk. Extreme enforcement is when you take him on up through the prosecutor and the courts.
So the sheriff is to keep the peace.
Yes.
And you could deny the federal government into your county if you wanted to and not take their money.
Oh yeah, I don't like taking any federal money, because that's that foot in the door. And
because at the sheriff's convention in Washington, D.C., the FBI was talking. What were they saying?
Oh, I wasn't
Okay.
there when they were talking.
Okay.
I just watched a video of a sheriff from Ohio, and he said that the FBI said there's more red flags now than what there was before 9/11, and that the hacking into our elections is going to go to a local level now. They want to get control of the local politics.
Do you think that sheriff should be federalized?
Oh, absolutely not.
Okay. Okay, perfect.
No, I'm not big on anything being federalized. So,
Okay. So you like local.
well, federal government has its jurisdiction. I understand that, but so do we, and they should not be usurping our jurisdictions.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. So this is Sheriff Darleaf, y'all. I will see you soon, and I'm going to play this on a couple different shows. Anything else you want to say? God bless you. Thank you. That is Sheriff Darleaf of Berry County, Michigan. I want to bring in one of the most incredible men. Harry, I'm sorry that I made you wait. It's been a crazy day. This is Harry Hari. Can you hear us, Harry? Testing.
I
One, two,
can.
three.
I didn't test. Can you hear me? That's the question.
Yes. We can hear you perfectly. That was Sheriff Darleaf of Berry County, Michigan. He says that there is foreign interference potentially in the elections in Michigan. What do you think about that one, Harry?
Well, Darleaf and I have had a number of conversations. He's a American hero. So, so in terms of foreign interference, this is a very complicated question. As you know, I used to work for the NSA, and so um, we have to be a little bit careful about what our conclusions are. We do know that in general, the standard that's being used for securing our elections is not adequate. And we also know from the Connick episode and what has been made public, mostly by them, um, because of some apparent errors on the part of their attorneys. The fact is that these systems had significant participation by parties that are compromised or part of the Chinese Communist Party. So whether they were actually interfering or using it for intelligence purposes or whatnot, I don't know that we've seen yet the proof.
Whoa. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3 are now we're having technical issues. This is so interesting when this happens because I feel like, Rumble, I work in the Rumble studio sometimes. I do shows in the Rumble studio in Washington, D.C., and sometimes they just say straight out that they get cyber attacks. So let's bring him in and out. That is Harry Hari. He is number one, in my opinion, and what's really going on with election corruption. Can you hear us, Harry? Okay, so his internet may not be working tonight, which is so important to figure out. He should go in and out and come back in the show. But we were watching video footage, can you hear us, Harry? Of an interview that I did with the sheriff, the constitutional sheriff of Berry County, Michigan. That's Sheriff Darleaf. And so the issue that I wanted to talk to Harry Hari about tonight was, is there foreign interference in our elections? And he was about to answer that question, and then the internet just fell apart. So this is really shocking. The internet froze. So let's see if Harry comes back in. Is there foreign interference in our elections? I mean, from the research that I've done, probably yes, but we can't propel any misinformation because the Supreme Court just voted in a very dangerous way this last month, the month of June 2024 in Washington, D.C., with Murphy versus Missouri. So that means that people like me who are just trying to report the real news to you could be censored for misinformation. It was used as medical misinformation in the beginning with the situation with COVID-19 pandemic and with the vaccines. But now this misinformation where the Supreme Court is basically saying they don't want to get involved. That's what the Supreme Court basically said this last week in the decision on Murphy versus Missouri. Harry, are you back? Let's see if Harry's back. Let's see. Harry, are you there? Can you hear us, Harry? Are you back?
I can hear you fine. Can you hear me or
Okay,
not?
perfectly. We're
Okay.
having a crazy night. I'm so sorry. I apologize, but this topic is so important because you're on the highest level of exposing election corruption. So is there foreign interference potentially?
There is certainly potential foreign interference, and we've reported it. The evidence that we gathered, we've reported to the DA,
Whoa.
and so the Department of Defense is aware of it. We've made official reports based on our findings under penalty of perjury, and Darleaf and I have talked about this generally a couple of times, and the fact of the matter is that our
system infrastructure is being managed in a way that is not secure. So no matter what Krebs said in 2020 and further into 2022, we don't have the kind of diligence being spent on maintaining cybersecurity that should be on the most important function of the federal government, which is to make sure that we have our freedoms intact through suffrage. When it names the causes and the purposes of the U.S. Constitution, the very first thing they talk about is our right to, in detail, is our right to elect our own representatives. And when you think about it, the representation, state, local, and federal, controls trillions of dollars a year in spending. The target is a rich target, just a waste on them or whatever it is. The fact of the matter is that whether you're talking about the corruption of our own officials or the corruption of our society through organized crime or foreign actors, it's all potentially quite a horrible situation in all frankness. So as I said before, Darleaf is an American hero. He's one of the few constitutional lawyers that have stood up to be counted on this issue. There are many other issues. They declared the Hunter Biden laptop to be complete garbage in November of 2020, or actually in October of 2020, and turns out that it was completely true, and it was mainly the FBI and the intelligence community behind suppressing that story. They had such a existential fear of Donald Trump being elected. And I'm not talking about this in a partisan sense. The fact is that our election infrastructure is not at all able in its current condition with its current administration to deliver fair, open, and honest elections. They're not behaving transparently. They're not obeying the law in many situations, and the election systems, the actual equipment, has become so complicated, and the failure of the states to put proper administration, in place to run these machines, which are again very complicated, we end up with the mess that we're in today, which is egregious, and we're leaving essentially the selection of our officials either to chaos because of apathy or perhaps ignorance, or more concerning is whether or not it's malice, that someone's actually doing all of this with complete intent. And a lot of people will yell and scream at me about, of course it's the machines, of course they hack the machines, but the fact is it's not just the machines. We have problems with our voting rolls. We don't know who's voting. Literally don't know. A lot of these people that we don't know for sure are eligible U.S. citizens to vote are voting, which makes those illegal votes under the law. I'm not talking about illegal aliens or securities fraud. I'm talking about election fraud. There's examples of election fraud everywhere, millions of cases. And then they don't even bother to reconcile the vote to voter tally. And what I mean by this is that there's a record made for every voter that registers to vote, and there's supposed to be, with every mailed-in ballot, a record of who the voter was that sent in that ballot and entered into the record system. When they look at the number of voters that were counted and the number of ballots that were counted, the discrepancy is in the millions in 2022. It was even larger in 2020. We see things like the states, and right there in Michigan, they're finding this in droves, but we found this in 2021 in New York, that they're making changes to the election records, years afterwards. Why are they doing that? Who is it that's authorizing them to change the official record of who voted and what that vote count was. When they drive in boxes that are uncontrolled, let's say that they're not even ballots, but they're uncontrolled at the TCF center. What are those? Why are they passing, in the middle of the night with no election officials or the official judges of both parties present? Why are they putting poster board up on observation windows so you can't see it? Why are they pulling ballots out from underneath tables to scan them at night in Fulton County? All these things actually happened. Why are conservative tabulators failing in Maricopa in precincts that are predominantly conservative, and seemingly, assuming again that the information that we're getting is true, seemingly not failing in other areas? Why are folds on ballots seemingly strategically placed to make certain candidates' votes not as likely to count accurately as other candidates? These are all questions that need to be answered, and it certainly rises well past the level of credible assertion that there are problems. Matter of fact, we know that the act of certifying the elections is a preposterous lie, because the federal rule that applies to certification is that something is both accurate and compliant, and they've chosen to ignore this completely. But then what we find after we do deeper analysis of the voting record is that there's discrepancies between counties. There's even discrepancies between precincts within counties based on, particular political leanings within those counties. This is an equal protection clause violation. Somebody has to do something about this. Our group, United Sovereign Americans, and Marley apologizes for not being able to be on tonight, but the fact of the matter is we are doing something about it. We're suing right now in Pennsylvania and Maryland. We're expanding that. We've done 21 deep dives, 21 states. We have problems in every state we look at. Basically, we don't know who's voting. we don't know how they voted. We can't prove that the ballots that are being counted are honest ballots. We just can't prove it. We have all sorts
And
of
now in
controls.
Washington, D.C., Harry, they're allowing people who are not citizens, they're allowing migrants and illegal aliens in Washington, D.C. to vote. And they're trying to do that in every state. So what do we do?
What we do is we push them back. The law is clear. I mean, the Constitution says an eligible voter is it's been broken conception, but it's a U.S. citizen of age 18 or above that's eligible under state. And if it's not that person, and if you can't prove it's that person, and you have indications because you've done measurements that a lot of these persons that are not eligible are voting, and it's not just illegal aliens, there are mystery regions everywhere. 50, 60, 100, registrations in a single house, or on vacant lots. I mean, but what it tells you is that there's no control process in place at all. There shouldn't be one vacant lot with 50 registrations. And the fact that you have any vacant lots with 50 registrations or more means that the system is broken. It's not trustworthy. So, you can cheat 2 votes at a time perfectly well. You don't have to cheat 5,000 votes at once. You can cheat, 1 vote here, 2 votes here, 10 votes there. And pretty soon, if you vote in enough precincts, just a few at a time, you've swayed the election. So, what we've shown in New York, what we've shown in Maryland, what we've shown in parts of Texas, what we've shown in Michigan, what we've shown in Wisconsin and California is that the primary criteria is that you have for an election is that the system is guaranteed to measure the intent of the electorate. And they are not doing that, provably not doing that at scale, sufficiently large scale to sway many elections. And, they say, well, you don't know who those fake votes or fake registrations or errors, did they benefit one party or another? It doesn't matter. The obligation on the part of the election officials to run a fair and honest election, and they're not doing that. They're not doing it in Michigan. They're not doing it in Missouri. It's not unique just to blue states, purple states, or red states. It's, it may be maybe one area or another in different states, but the fact of the matter is that, we need to know who's voting. We need to prove who's voting. They need to be known to us. We call it know your voter. So it's, we have certain obligations to know that the people that are voting are real. Then we have an obligation to know that the ballots that are inserted came out of their hands. What we find in Maricopa, as an example, in Fulton County, is that all the chain of custody documents are broken. In Detroit and Michigan, many of the chain of custody documents not only were broken, they weren't even there. So the reason they have chain of custody documents is to make sure that the ballots, the votes that are being counted, are real ballots that have been observed by both Republicans and Democrats, and if you have an independent party, by them as well. So this isn't about Republican versus Democrat versus, independent. This is about whether we believe we have instances within our republic, we're going to let them all die. So, what we really talk about real, quickly is you got to know who the voters are. You have to be able to prove that the vote that they cast was the one that was counted. You've got to be able to prove that the count is real. And it all comes down to auditability. I've talked many times on the air about the fact that if you can't prove it, you don't know it. So, we would never allow this to be done with a company. The IRS doesn't allow it with our personal books. We've got to be able to prove that we spent the money that we spent on on appropriate things according to whether we deducted them from our taxes or not. So and when you tell the IRS, you sign that IRS form, you're doing the same thing as a certification. You're signing under penalty of perjury that the document is accurate. Well, the federalized officials in the election system, often state employees, not federal employees, but they work under a federal duty, which is called affirmative duty, or a need to be able to enforce the law. In Coy in 1888, the federal government, the Supreme Court, decides that election officials don't have the right to claim ignorance because they've taken the duty to know what's happening. If they're administering the election, they need to know what's happening with the election. They need to know what the law says they're supposed to do. And if they don't do that, that by itself is proof of intent to commit election fraud. So it's not like securities fraud where the federal government has to prove that you had an intent to steal something. It's completely different. It's an assumption that the person has assumed the mantle of election official, and they're going to take their responsibility. And if they don't, they get to go to jail if somebody bothers
Harry, I just got back from the Turning Point event in Detroit, Michigan, and we have Charlie Kirk, who's raised millions and millions of dollars. He's raising the most money. He's asking everyone to go to Arizona and register someone to vote. Is that even going to make a difference? What Charlie Kirk is doing?
It's not going to make a difference if they cheat at scale that's greater than the number of voters that we register. Now, the problem with any kind of systemic, malicious activity is that the more, the higher your chance of getting caught. So the fact is that this type of mischief in elections usually occurred at the margins in years past. But now we have these complex machines that nobody's being allowed to see inside. No one's being allowed to touch the ballots after the fact to see whether the counts were accurate. This is all preposterous. How can we have an election and we're letting the machines decide? Who wrote the code? The Serbian programmers and the Dominion is hired. Who or the Chinese programmers that Konik is hired? Who wrote it? Do we even know if it works the way that it says that it works? And then we have all these strange anomalies. The first one that was detected actually in 2020 was a 6,000 vote flip in Antrim. And people say, well, it's just some sort of glitch, right? It's not a glitch. The system is supposed to work. You're not supposed to certify things that are provably not working. And they're responsible for that. They're responsible for making sure that they do work. That's the machine audits that mean anything. The biggest lies the limiting audits. They're not audits at all. You talk to any CPA about the difference between an actual end-to-end audit and a risk limiting audit, is that risk limiting audits are designed not to find things. So any politician or election official that gets up there and tells you about the fact that they ran risk limiting audits and that everything is okay in the risk limiting audit, and yet they have 100,000 more votes counted than voters, is lying to you. They ought to be thrown out of office. And if they were
Okay,
responsible
so
for certifying the election, they should be put in jail for election fraud. Most people don't know this. Election fraud is not just people from the outside trying to insert ballots. It's also election officials that don't do their duty. It's the law. All you have to do is read the Justice Department guidance on prosecution of crimes or offenses, as they call them. But the fact is a very specific word, well defined by hundreds of years of precedents. But the mainstream media doesn't seem to the words election. We'll look up what the words election fraud mean.
so I mean, we're gonna have to vote in November. What do we do?
So the only thing
What
that
do
we
do
think
in
can do
November?
this is, so what we can do by November is we're filing lawsuits based on the analysis that we've done now in 21 states. And we're going to do everything we can to force it all the way to the United States Supreme Court for the purpose of making them obey the law and putting them on notice. If they don't obey the law, they're going to be held personally accountable for not obeying the law, which we can do. Most people don't realize that election law doesn't really exist. Our election law, HAVA and NIVRA and the Voting Rights Act, are all civil rights acts. They have nothing to do with election conduct. They have to do with civil rights. So they're violating our civil rights when they don't follow the policy and procedures and process that they've embedded in law, whether that's state law or federal law. And when they don't know what happened in the election, but they counted anyway, that's complete sophistry. I mean, they recounted the entire state of Florida in the year 2000 by hand to deal with the hanging chads and dimpled ballots. And it didn't take that long. Once they decided to do the recount by hand, it was done in, I think, 10 days. The actual time, it took 45 days from the challenge to the conclude, but the actual count, I believe, and don't quote me on this because I haven't looked it up recently, but I believe the count took less than 10 days after they, did all sorts of, fighting about how the count should be done. And once the quibbling was over, they got on to business, and it really didn't take that long. We could do it in every state. And my friend David Clements, wants to be rid of the machines. The only thing I say about this is that we have problems with the machines, and it's not just who manufactured them. It's not just who wrote the software. It's not just that they're on networks. It's not just that foreigners are involved. It also includes things that are more mundane, like contracts that the state officers sign that say you can't look at the code. It's a monstrosity. It's like saying, don't look behind the green curtain. There's nothing there. Go away. The old Wizard of Oz analogy. So this is not the way people do real code. Can you imagine flying on a Boeing jet and somebody put in the avionics system a piece of code that they refused under contract to let Boeing look at it to see whether or not it was going to perform safely? That's what we've got. We've got a situation where we're taking the word of vendors, not exactly the most neutral party in the world, even if they weren't compromised by own intelligence community or anything else, it would still be preposterous to tell the United States public that they had to rely on the assertions, bald assertions, no proof, all assertions, soft, that there's no way that it could be a ridiculous notion. But it goes well beyond that. There's federal standards for security, and they've been completely ignored. So again, it's not just getting rid of the machines and going to hand counting. It may be getting rid of the machines, but at least doing something to make the security work and prove that the machines function properly. I don't think they can do that before the election. I think the only option actually at this time, late date, is to go to hand recount or hand counting system. Could do some interim things that would be easier, like end-to-end ballot audits, where you determine whether or not the physical paper and the results of the counting, they'd have to be randomly selected. It would have to be done in such a way that it would detect fraud. But the fact is, an auditable system, one that actually had real audits from beginning to end that could peg what happened with regard to the count, would go a long way to solving the problem. But then you've got this issue where people simply don't know who's voting. I mean, we have millions and millions and tens of millions of people registered that don't exist. Some of them are dead, some of them have moved, some of them were never born. Or else they have 25 clones all living in the same city. We've got one guy that's
Yeah, so wait, so you started litigation in Maryland, and then it's trickling out to different states. It was Illinois, and now you are doing the litigation for the civil rights violations in the state of Pennsylvania.
That's correct. And
So
we're
how do
going to
people
do quite
donate to that? How do we donate to that?
more. Well, you go to our, and the one I have memorized is unite the number 4 freedom. Americans, because of the concept under the Constitution, comes from the people, not from the government, not from our bureaucrats, but from the people. It gets confused with other people using sovereignty in the wrong way, but ours is a defense of our Constitution and a defense of our right of fair vote. So if we have many ways to donate. We, it comes up first thing on our website. So again, unite the number 4 freedom.com.
And then what's the status of all the lawsuits that you've filed with respect to a violation of our civil rights? Because that's the key to what you're doing, correct?
So Maryland, the judge is, thrown it out on Sunday, and we're appealing that. Pennsylvania case. These actions in most states will be what are called mandamus actions. And then we have an escalation process. If mandamus doesn't work, we have a process that's well out, with the opinion and advice of, dozens of attorneys, constitutional to regular legal attorneys and election attorneys, about how to go about dismantling this mess. And the first place is to get orders out for them to obey the existing law. The existing law is actually not too bad, except that the bureaucratic state has worked around our election laws. Simple things like making the definition of a mail-in ballot mean something at the time that the law was changed. HAVA by changing the definition of what a mail-in ballot was. That's changing federal law. That's completely wrong, but no one saw it because there aren't that many attorneys that are sufficiently expert in elections to notice this kind of thing. But they do this type of thing all the time. It's the same thing. Let's not legal for anybody to look in software code because we signed this state contract that says it's confidential. Where is it exactly that it says a bureaucrat in the state of Georgia can overrule the federal government as to whether or not software systems are judged to be secure? That's what they did with a contract. The lowest form of legal binding that there is, just about. Yeah, common law might be lower, I don't know, but too bad Sheriff Darleaf isn't here now. But the fact of the matter is that when you look at it from a hierarchy standpoint, you have the Constitution, the broadest, most general rights that we have. Then the necessary and proper clause of the Constitution allows you to create laws, that are necessary and proper to enforce our rights. And that's at the federal level. The state has similar structure, but the primacy clause of the U.S. Constitution says that where the federal government has a law and has jurisdiction, that their law supersedes the federal law. So when you go down this whole hierarchy, the lowest thing in the whole election panoply, all of these different things that are going on with elections, the lowest thing that can be done is a bureaucrat signing a contract with an independent non-government vendor, and they're using that to tell everybody that they can't look behind the green curtain. It's ridiculous. but this is what
Okay,
we've allowed.
so you're saying the judge in the Maryland case pushed it back, right?
Right.
The
And
judge
we're
okay.
appealing, and we
Yes,
filed our
okay.
Pennsylvania lawsuit.
What happened to Illinois?
And it's
What happened to
working its
Illinois?
test. We're getting ready to file 6 more lawsuits in the next couple of weeks. Go ahead, what?
What happened to Illinois?
We haven't filed yet there, simply not because we haven't raised money, but every time we get close to getting an attorney in Illinois, frankly, they back out because it's a very difficult environment. New York and Illinois are both very, Michigan as well, actually, although Sheriff Darleaf has stood up. But he stood up from a not rural, but a smaller town base outside of, the power structures in Michigan that are trying to control the state. And the fact of the matter is that we're having difficulty finding attorneys. And if somebody wants to volunteer that's listening to your show, get on our website, ask to talk to Harry.
I will
we
give
need
them your
Illinois
number.
attorneys,
I'm going
we
to find
need
you
Texas
a lawyer.
attorneys, we need Ohio attorneys, we need California attorneys. I mean, we have some now, but we need more. I mean, the states that are involved are many. I mean, we've got, like I said, we have 21 scorecards. Basically, though, I mean, all of our people, me included, we take no salary at all. The only expenses we pay basically are infrastructure, travel, and expenses and legal expenses. So money is important. Lawyers and paralegals are important, and we can use all the volunteers we can find.
Okay, so in basically 21 states, you need lawyers, you need paralegals, you need people to donate because you are not stopping. You're going to further the litigation and say that it's a violation of our civil rights to have elections that are corrupt.
That's correct. And it is. Most people don't know this. They think all of our rights are outlined in the Bill of Rights of the Constitution, right? But there's one right that's put directly in the body of the main Constitution. That's our right to suffrage. Our right to a fair election is actually embedded in the 3rd sentence of the Constitution.
So that's a huge violation if we don't have fair elections. So Maryland is just getting taken to an appeals court, right?
Right.
Then we have Illinois, which we cannot find adequate lawyers for yet, correct?
We don't have anybody engaged at this point, no. We've been
Okay.
talking to people, but everyone's a bit
Ohio?
shy. Ohio,
Ohio?
we believe we engaged an Ohio attorney today. We're hoping that the final, ink on and editing on the engagement letter will be done hopefully maybe tomorrow. So we'll be getting ready to go forward with Ohio immediately. But we also want Michigan. We had a little bit of problem getting the data together, but we now have a scorecard done in Michigan. A great data analyst was helping us, and we've gotten some help from from some of the people that have been helping Sheriff Darleaf actually. And so we've got a vetted, peer-reviewed scorecard now, and we're ready to file in Michigan. There again, we need an attorney, so we don't have a Michigan attorney. We do have a California attorney. We have an interim Texas attorney, although we're trying to find additional ones because there's been some life disruption that they've had to deal with, and we'll go from there. But
California, Texas, what about Arizona?
we intend to file in Arizona too. We have an Arizona scorecard now. So
Wisconsin. I'm giving you all the key
our
states.
intention, so this gets back to the donations, just to be clear. It's very expensive to litigate these things in federal court. And we're going to litigate in as many places as we can. But it's going to be governed completely by the ability to raise enough money. And even though the attorneys are getting paid, they are capping their rates at very advantageous rates, or we wouldn't have been able to do the two that we've done so far. I mean, we literally need millions of dollars, and our funds are coming in well now. It's not like people aren't donating, but the fact is we don't have much time left, so we need people to accelerate those donations.
So it's Unite for Freedom, uniteforfreedom.com. Did I say that right? Uniteforfreedom.com.
Yes, except 4 is actually the number 4. So it's, the symbol
Unite
for 4.
For the number 4 freedom.com. Unite right. The number 4 freedom.com. Unite for freedom.com. Yes, correct. I love that. I just feel like we are going to be in trouble in November because nothing's been solved. So you're telling us to vote in person. What's the bottom line in November? What should we do, Harry?
So mail-in ballots, the way they're being administered, are a horrific mark on the integrity or validity of our elections. So, but we have evidence that it's not just the mail-in ballots. So we actually have to get the administration of our elections under control. And that means that the handling of the ballots has to be pristine. It has to be done with serious professionalism. And if it's not done with serious professionalism, the people responsible need to be held responsible in a court of law, whether that's financial damages or legal assertions of prosecution. But the fact is, we cannot allow the complete destruction of our democratic processes, which is what we're allowing right now. So it's not just voting in person. It's not just getting rid of it. I mean, it's all of it. I mean, if I had my druthers, we would be doing purple thumbprints on our ballots, and we would be doing citizen searches on everybody that votes, and we would be making sure with a manual audit that everything that left the voters' hands were counted accurately. But we're not doing that right now.
I mean, this is all so shocking. I'm in Washington, D.C., and that's why Sheriff Darleaf respects me. I went to Jim Jordan and I had a very interesting conversation with him. And I said, have you read the email from Sheriff Darleaf in Berry County, Michigan, stating that there could be foreign interference with our elections? And so hopefully someone in Congress will have the courage and the bravery to stand up and expose the truth. I asked Marjorie Taylor Greene, why are we not having hearings on election corruption? She told me because it's not a federal issue, it's an issue of the states. But could Congress be actually helping us, Harry? What could Congress do for real?
So our civil rights are embedded in the Constitution of the United States. It is a federal matter. It's always been
Okay.
a federal matter. So the manner and place of elections is determined by the state, but there are basic civil rights built into the system, and the Help America Vote Act and the National Voter Registration Act that define on a federal basis what has to happen, and they're not following it. And I'm not talking about, a 0.5% or 1/4% or 1/1000th of a percent. I'm talking about 4, 8, 10, 15% inaccuracy rates, which is enough to throw many elections. Even in deep red and deep blue states, it's enough to sway an election. This has to stop now. And we're going to stop it if we can. That's what we're going to do. So we're suing. We're putting our money where our mouth is, and we're fighting. But for them to deny that there's no place for federal officials is insane. So
yes, Congress people have told me that the election corruption is not a federal issue. So I'm actually going to go to Congressman Barry Loudermilk. I'm going to go to different ones that Darleaf, shows me are important. But so far, there's been no hearings on any issues about election corruption in Washington, D.C., which is shocking. So what do we do on November 5th?
okay,
Because
so when you go there next, Corinne, this is what you need to do. You need to print out the 8th edition of the Federal Prosecution Guide, or the Guidelines for Federal Prosecution of Election Offenses, 2017. It's pretty long. Go through there and take everything out that doesn't mention the word election fraud if you have the time to do it, or just give them the whole booklet, wave it in front of their faces. When they say it's not a federal matter, these are all the cases and the case law and the history of the United States of federal officials prosecuting election crimes. And we've been prosecuting election crimes and misconduct under elections federally for well over 100 years. And to say that it's not a federal matter is absurd. It is a federal matter. It doesn't matter whether it's a Secretary of State that's fraudulently or improperly acquiring election equipment that's insecure, or CISA, not, a federal agency not properly certifying them as being secure under federal guidelines. The Federal Information Security Modernization Act dictates how that's supposed to be done. They're not using that. They're doing their own thing. It's just the bureaucrats are doing whatever they want. The Supreme Court has made a huge move against the bureaucratic state with Jakursky, I think. I'm not sure how to pronounce the last name, versus the Securities and Exchange Commission last week. Everybody was paying attention to the one that has J6 overlay, but the Chevron case. But both Chevron and the other cases, but Fisher, I think, is the name of it. But there's also another one which says that the bureaucrats can't just decide that they want to change the law or create law from midair. The only people vested with the right to create law are the congressmen and the senators. So that's going to be a big deal too.
So on November 5th, what do? We vote in person.
Every single person needs to vote. I would suggest voting in person. The statistics are pretty bad about what the failure rate of mail ballots getting counted is. So I would not trust the system very far, but I wouldn't trust mail-in ballots at all. But a lot of people say my vote doesn't count.
Line. Okay.
We got to vote by the millions. If we voted 80 million in 2020, we've got to vote 120 million people in 2024. The fact is we need real voters, because what we do is whatever apparatus they're using to mess with our elections, or let's just call it inaccuracy, their apathy, screwing up the accuracy of the count will be overwhelmed by the number of people voting. So if you can get everybody out there demanding that they be heard, 100% of the people. Of course, we have some places that voted 110%. That's another issue. But the fact is, we can do this, and we saw at the debate what happens when we don't bother paying attention to who the candidate really is, and we let them hide in the basement. So, and I don't mean to say that from a partisan standpoint, but that's what happens in a country where people are making choices for you instead of you making your own choices. And they have to be informed choices. If you're liberal, there's nothing wrong with voting liberal. If all the people are liberal, all abide by the choice of the people that have voted. But we need fair, open, and honest elections. But the only way to get them right now is to be vigilant. We need poll workers. We need people looking, watching, analyzing data. We need people ready to pounce when they detect illegal activity in 2024. And we need to get as many of these lawsuits positioned so that we have the right, clearly, if something goes wrong in 2024, to sue and stop the mess from happening. I'm not against, and people say, well, we can't redo an election. Georgia redoes an election all the time in 1 month after. I mean, it's just, not that they do it well, evidently, from what I see from the data, but the fact of the matter is there's nothing preventing people from rerunning an election. So my suggestion is, if things go off the rails in 2024, that we all agree that we need to demand a redo. Don't demand the designation of a winner. That's a very high bar to meet. What you need to do is demand investigations and demand that the election be redone properly. That needs
Okay.
To
So you're saying we all vote in November 2024, and if there's a real problem, we demand an audit.
We demand an investigation, an audit, and an injunction against anybody certifying the election that's obviously broken. That's what we have to do, is stop the certification based on overwhelming evidence, which we now have, that the margin of error was greater than the margin of victory, which means they have no idea who won these elections. Of course, the people with their thumb on the scale get to determine that. But the Constitution says the people get to choose their representatives, not the election officials, not the existing senators and the representatives. The people that get to choose are you and I. And we need a system that responds to what you and I and everybody else out there listening says. And the current system doesn't respond to what you and I want. It doesn't even count our votes accurately. And it doesn't stop people that are ineligible from voting either. So, this is a major problem.
It's a major civil rights violation.
That's correct.
I'm learning. Okay. So we
just look at Title 18, USC 241 and 242, and that'll inform you as to how powerful this is. We can hold officials directly responsible for their failure to perform adequately, which includes their affirmative duty. They can't just be ignorant and not know the law. They don't get away with that excuse. Doesn't exist.
Everyone needs to go to Unite the number 4 freedom. Unite the number 4, uniteforfreedom.com. Uniteforfreedom.com. That is so powerful. Okay. Well, I'm going to check in with you in a month or two and see how it's going, because November is approaching pretty fast.
Look forward to it.
I'm concerned. Yes, you are wonderful. Thank you, Harry. God bless you. Peace. Thank you. That is Harry Hari. God bless you. Thank you, Harry. Harry is one of my most favorite people. I have so many people that I respect and cherish, and Harry Hari is one of them, because he's on the front line telling us the truth about the election corruption that's happening in every single state. So right now, Unite for Freedom, unite the number 4 and then freedom.com is where you go to find out about the lawsuits that they are filing. And right now, the last lawsuit they filed was in Pennsylvania for civil rights violations, because it's our civil right to have fair elections. It's our civil right to not have election corruption. So there is so much more to the story, but I want to bring in a very powerful pastor right now. Pastor Rich, what do I say? How do I introduce you? This is my first time interviewing you. So tell me everything we need to know about you.
Well, not really a pastor. I'm more of a street preacher. And
I like to call pastors no matter what. Okay.
okay, fair enough.
Okay, so Rich is a street preacher.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I've been doing it for several years with a focus on trying to expose and shut down drag queen story times, which feature grown men dressed in women's underwear who are dancing provocatively and sexually in front of children.
Did you just see the San Francisco Pride Parade where they're actually giving each other oral sex in front of children in San Francisco this last weekend?
And they were urinating in each other's mouths too.
That is so disgusting. Oh my gosh. What are we going to do to stop this? This is shocking.
Well, here's the thing, everybody keeps asking that question, what do we do? What do we do? And the only answer is that Christians need to get out of their church parking lots and start actually standing against this. The Bible tells us, God asks the question, who will rise up for me against evildoers? Who will stand up for me against the workers of iniquity? And of course, that's supposed to be our job. But, the church in America today has been nothing more. It wants to be everybody's friend. It wants to be nice. We're so afraid of what these people think about us because we've allowed them to define what love and what hate is. We've allowed them to tell us what the truth is. And we have changed God's word. We've traded the truth for a lie, and we've become very carnal in our thinking. And we care more about the feelings of reprobates than we do about God. And our culture and our society are ultimately paying the price for that.
I mean, the San Francisco Pride Parade was one of the most traumatic things many of my friends who are independent journalists ever covered. But I think for me today, the Supreme Court was pretty traumatic. And then listening tonight about the election corruption that's happening across America, you're based out of Oklahoma, correct?
Correct.
So do you have hope in this hopeless world?
I want to say yes. But especially living in Oklahoma, which is considered the most conservative state in the country, I had I don't know if you want to call it privilege. I mean, speaking as a Christian, I've had the privilege of being the first American, the first Christian to be threatened with jail time for posting Bible verses without commentary, mind you. In the state of Oklahoma, we had police, judges, a judge in open court in Oklahoma, conservative Oklahoma, tell me that we only have the freedom of speech to speak generally to people. We are not allowed, this is what a judge said in open court, we are not allowed to speak and target individual people with our speech. Our freedom of speech, he says, ends at that point. And they stuck a 5-year gag order on me for targeting or actually exposing what drag queens are doing in front of children in Bartlesville, Oklahoma. So I'd like to say yes, but we exposed that. And not only did we incur the wrath of the LGBT, but the people that claim that we're on the same side hated us just as much as the other side did too for exposing it.
But you've had some wins, so that's a good thing.
Yes, we did.
Because I always ask people, okay, so you're winning.
Well, we did. The Supreme Court, Rutherford Institute, got involved, and they filed an appeal on that gag order. And just on the 11th, we won. The Supreme Court overturned it and actually rebuked that judge 3 times for infringing on my right to free speech. Because, these LGBT groups, they keep saying things, it's about safety for them. It's not about safety. It's about silencing. And that's what it is in this country now. And, we're too nice, and we care more about our image to people that hate God. We care more about how people who hate the truth, who hate freedom, who hate our constitutional republic. I mean, I keep hearing we're a democracy, but we're not. We're a constitutional republic. But our Constitution is only as good as long as people are there willing to stand up for it. And I'm sorry to say this, but a lot of conservatives just don't have the backbone to actually do anything. We talk about what needs to be done, something needs to be done, where we complain and we moan and groan on Facebook, who, by the way, controls the narrative, but we don't actually do anything about it because we're too afraid of being labeled homophobe or racist or xenophobe or what have you. When we stop giving power to what other people say about us, especially when it's not true, things will change. And God tells us in his word, in Second Chronicles, he says, if my people, not all people, if my people will humble themselves and repent of their sins, he promises to heal our land. So if we want America to be great again, we need America to first be born again. And then God will heal our land. And that's if Christians humble themselves and repent.
Okay, so you think it's all about Christians repenting because a whole group of really beautiful Christians are flying into Washington, D.C., and they're leading the National Day of Repentance on July 4th at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time at the U.S. Capitol and pretty much in every capital around America. So we need to repent. How do I repent properly?
Well, it's just a matter of saying, okay, Lord, repent means to change your mind. And I agree. There's a lot of good, God-fearing men and women in this country still. It's one of the reasons why I believe God hasn't completely decimated America yet, because there are still good, godly men and women in this country. The thing is a lot of people don't know what to do. We just need to get on our faces and pray, and we need to be willing to stand up and exercise the rights that God gave us. See, people forget that the Constitution says that these rights are given to us by God, not by the government, not by any man. But we keep letting men infringe on our rights for some reason because we want to be the nice guy. We want to be the bigger guy. But we just need to humble ourselves and say, we've had enough of this. These pride parades, these people that are, taking us to court for our speech. I mean, literally posting Bible verses. They're trying to say hate speech now. We're letting them do it. When I won this Supreme Court case, a lot of people asked me about the election coming up. And they said, do you think it's who's going to win and whatnot, as I'm interviewing. And I said, I believe Donald Trump's going to win, of course. I'll be voting for Trump. But the thing is I do believe the election was stolen the first time. What did we actually do about it? I'm not talking about the January 6th stuff, but what did we as Christians, conservatives actually do about that? It's almost—
We started praying.
Praying is necessary, absolutely. But we have to, the Bible says, faith without works is dead. We have to pray and then act on that prayer. So we cannot let these people get away with this stuff. And again, a lot of people say, what do we do? And prayer, like you said, is absolutely vital. We have to pray, but we have to back up our prayer with action too. And I'm not saying be violent by any means necessary. Violence is never acceptable for a Christian unless it's in self-defense and self-defense only. But we have to stop caring so much about what other people think about us as Christians. We have to be more worried about offending God than we are about offending people.
Okay.
And when we start doing that, because again, we're so afraid to just call it out for what it is. I'm very thankful and humbled that God has put me in this position to be a street preacher, because I can say things that a lot of people are afraid to say. I'll call a pervert in 2 seconds. I don't care. We just preached out an event in Cookeville, Tennessee, at a Pride event. And you talked about San Francisco, which was disgustingly horrible. But in Tennessee, in Cookeville, Tennessee, at that Pride event, we had a woman on camera, I have it on video, admit to me. She said, I am a child groomer and I'm okay with that, is what she said. We had another little girl, maybe 12, maybe 13 years old, running around with a t-shirt saying, I love older women, at a Pride event. This is happening all over our country. These, people don't want to talk about this LGBT stuff for some reason, but you look throughout history, and this is what ends cultures and societies. Anthropologists have studied ancient civilizations and cultures throughout history. And the giving into liberalism, when we loosen our sexual morality, this ends, and within 3 generations, those societies no longer exist. And we are in that time right now. If we don't do something, we are going to lose the soul, and we are going to lose our culture. Our military. Did you see the video that the Navy put up today or the last week or so, and the Army, all the Pride stuff? I'm a Navy veteran, for crying out loud. And now the diversity and inclusion, we're the laughing stock of the world. We care more about, mutilating people's genitals than we do about training men and women to fight the enemy. I mean, but we let it get like this. As Americans, we let this happen. We've allowed Facebook and YouTube, and I'm sure you're very familiar with the censorship. We take our fight on social media, but they're the ones who control the narrative. We have to go to the streets and use our voices and speak up and speak loud and stand against this evil. Call these corrupt politicians. And I know patriots don't like when I say this, but this is the truth. America right now deserves worse than a Biden as a president because of what we've allowed to happen in our country. How many babies are murdered every day in this country in the name of convenience? And yet you don't find people standing out there in droves to protect the innocent. We just ended Pride Month. And like you said, San Francisco, public streets, people are performing oral sex with children there. Naked men. I don't know if you saw the whole video or not, but it was all naked men running around waving to children.
And the police didn't care. My friend Taylor Hansen was there filming it.
Yeah.
And the police didn't care.
No, they said, this is a pick your battle day. If you or me did that, we would be in jail, and rightly so. But in the name of tolerance, we can do whatever we want. And I'm an adult, you're an adult. No one's going to change my mind. And at this point, it's safe to assume that no one's going to change your mind either. Our children are the ones who be affected by this. Abraham Lincoln said this. He said, the philosophy of the classroom in one generation is going to be the philosophy of our government in the next generation. So these kids, what they're being taught today, that stuff is what's going to be our government in the future. And while in America right now, for me to go out and preach the word of God and stand against it, it's pretty easy. No one's getting their head chopped off yet, but we're getting there. Not yet, but the Bible says it's going to happen, right?
In our lifetime? Is it going to happen in our lifetime?
I don't know. I'm not a prophet. I don't pretend to be one. I just know that at some point in the future, but you can see that the trajectory we're on as a country and a culture. When people are being put in jail for posting the words of Jesus Christ, when you got people who don't even, Joe Biden, who literally sat in his basement the whole campaign, wins the election, and I've been at Patriot events. I went to the border with the Texas thing. There is no way that guy won, but we just let him do it. And those guys at January 6th, I don't agree with what they did, but it wasn't an insurrection. They were clowns. They went in there. They shouldn't have, but they weren't insurrectionists.
They're not clowns, though. They're my really good friends. I have one.
Well, I don't mean clowns like that. I mean,
they're wonderful. Yeah.
Right. But they didn't go in there with
stood
a
up
purpose.
And they got clobbered. They're all getting arrested and over sentenced.
They should have got, at the worst, maybe a citation for trespassing. At the worst, maybe.
Yeah.
But when I say clowns, I meant they weren't going in there to cause violence. They were more like sightseeing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, they just went to a rally and it got violent because the police got violent. So
right,
we are in trouble. I don't know what we're going to do, but today at the Supreme Court, I watched, I saw something that was really traumatic today in the Supreme Court, and I just got to get over it. It was this gentleman, he's just an African-American gentleman, but the stuff he was saying to me was so serious. He was saying to me that basically there's going to be a purge of anyone who supports President Donald Trump. And so I haven't posted the footage of what I got in front of the Supreme Court because this man has to be a paid protester or some type of asset for a Fed. But this all comes roundabout to know street preachers like you. I mean, I like to call you pastor, but street preachers like you. Yes. I mean, I love the pastors of America. And what I'm really worried about is that, Cal Zastro, who's also a street preacher, or he's a missionary around the world, he's facing 11 years for conspiracy. Right now, he's going to be sentenced for conspiracy. He's a pro-life activist in Michigan, in the state of Michigan. He's getting sentenced in Michigan, or he's getting sentenced in Tennessee on July 3rd. He's getting sentenced in Michigan
that
on
too.
like August. I mean, tell us the truth about that. That's the most important news right now.
Well, that thing in Tennessee, that abortion clinic, I actually preach out there quite a bit when in Tennessee out there at the Carafim. And that day that those guys were there,
When are they getting sentenced? Is that
I think
on July 3rd or is it August?
there was a bunch today. They were saying they were going up there to Nashville today. I know.
Okay, so it's
was up there.
July 3rd, they're getting sentenced.
Yeah.
In Nashville, Tennessee.
And the thing is they didn't do anything. Yes, okay, they went in there, but they blocked an abortion clinic. And look, as a Christian, who shouldn't do that? These are people that are murdering babies. If a mother was dragging her 2-year-old across the parking lot and said, you know what, doc, I don't feel like being a mom anymore. Can you chop his or her arms or legs off and, maybe squeeze the brains out of their head and do whatever you want with it? We would never tolerate that. Every single person I know would stand in the way and do something about that. And that's all these people did. They stood at the doorway there and they wanted to stop the slaughter of innocent children. That's all they did. They're guilty of nothing more than protecting life. And for that, they're going to go to jail for 11 years. They didn't cause any harm. They weren't there to cause any violence. Matter of fact, when the police told them to leave, they left. And 11 years in prison for that. But I'll bet you if they were Antifa or Black Lives Matter and they went and stood in front of a church, I guarantee we would never hear about it.
They're getting charged with conspiracy. Obviously, conspiracy is 10 years. A violation of the FACE Act is 1 year.
Right.
How many people are getting charged on July 3rd in the state of Tennessee? These people are what? These people are older people. They're, 60, 70 years old. They're all parents. They've all been Christian missionaries their whole lives. When I talk to Cal Zastro, he says, hallelujah, I'll be able to preach in the prison or the jail.
Yeah.
That's just unacceptable. When we have a country that is arresting Christians, we have a crisis. Over 1,500 Christian American patriots have been arrested under President Joe Biden. We have a crisis. What do we do?
Well, again, number one is as a Christian, again, the Bible says the world is going to hate us, and it's supposed to. We're going to be jailed. We're going to be persecuted. We should not be surprised by this. But honestly, like I said, what do we do as Christians? We need to stand together. We could learn one thing. If we can learn anything from the LGBT people and whatnot and these liberals is no matter how bad they are, even when they disagree, they still stand with each other. As Christians, we get arguments over things that don't even matter. And I'm not talking about salvation issues, but we all have different things, and eschatology and whatnot that have nothing to do with our salvation, and we fight and fight and fight about it. If we truly want to do something, that we need to stand together as one body, raising our voices together, crying out to God and saying, no, we've had enough of this. This is our country. This is, God built America. Our Constitution was written from sermons that our founding fathers listened to at their churches. Okay, our Constitution recognizes that there is a God. And our Constitution says our rights come from God, not courts, not our government. They come from God himself. And the sooner we really get that through our heads and understand that these courts,
Whoa, we're having technical difficulties today. This is wild. Can you hear us? Pastor Rich. I love to hear from the pastors. Today has been such an intense day. Can you hear us? We lost you for a minute.
oh, that.
I've had a wild day with the internet. Sometimes Rumble, I work in the Rumble studio. I film in the Rumble studio sometimes in Washington, D.C. And the Rumble guys tell me that the Rumble gets attacked, cyber attacked all of the time. So I'm so sorry. Keep going.
Well, I was saying, and you're right about that, because I actually got an email from YouTube. I got them to admit that they shadow ban Christians. Like, I've got an email from them, because remember all these times they say we don't do that. I got them to admit that they do it. If you're controversial, they're gonna shadow ban you. But what I was saying was
I'm banned everywhere. We can only be on Rumble #1, maybe X. X is okay. I'm probably shadow banned on there. I could barely post on there. Yeah.
X, he never, if you actually look, Christian Post was going to do an article about it, but he did not return the accounts of any real born again Christian. He didn't give us our accounts back. I didn't get mine back. Mine was shut down.
Elon Musk didn't give real Christians their accounts back on X?
from what I was told, yeah, I know I didn't get mine back. And
I'll
I didn't
help you get yours back. I'll help you. I'll personally help you.
because I know like Antifa got me shut down because if you remember a few years ago, Antifa beat the snot out of a group of street preachers in LA in front of WeSpa. And
yes, were you part of that?
Ruben Israel was a very close friend of mine, and I wasn't there, but those are the guys I preach with all the time.
Okay.
So Antifa, they knew who I was, and they mass reported my account back then, and it got suspended. And then my daughter wore a T-shirt to school in Tennessee, and got kicked out because it said homosexuality is a sin, and we sued the school. So because of all that, we got mass reported, and they shut down my account. And Christian Post reached out to me, I guess, when Elon took over, and they said, "Did you get your account back?" And I said, "No." And they said, "Well, it seems like he hasn't given any Christians their account back." And I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah, there's a lot of Christian street preachers or very vocal Christians that are against like LGBT or abortion that did not get their accounts back." And I said, I didn't know that. But so that's what they told me.
Well, Elon wouldn't do that, but he has a very liberal CEO. And so if you want me to help you get your account back, I can help you. I care about that because X is how everybody, oh, you made another one? Okay. X is how everybody communicates now. Using Twitter, using X is how everybody communicates. But listen, I'm really worried about the pro-life activists in Tennessee. So I just want everyone to be aware that they are getting charged on July 3rd. I do have a gentleman named Gabriel Olivier.
Yep.
He got arrested in front of me in Washington, D.C.
He's the guy, Gabriel Olivier is the guy that really got me into street preaching.
Yeah, so he got arrested in front of me in Washington, D.C. on May 21st, 2024. And we went hard and heavy. I went to the Speaker of the House. I went to a whole bunch of Congress people's offices because it really is Speaker of the House Mike Johnson's fault if he's going to let Christian preachers get arrested in front of the U.S. Capitol, and all charges got dropped. So I'm pretty effective when you focus me, but I'm just so overwhelmed with news. I mean, the news is out of control.
Gabriel's a good brother. I love him to death. He actually, when I got started street preaching, if you go back and you're doing a Google search on me, you'll see he was one of the guys that literally traveled the country with me as we stood against this drag queen story when they were just in libraries reading stories. It was me, him, and another brother from Mississippi with him that literally traveled the country everywhere. We were part of the group that, exposed that pedophile down in Houston during the drag queen story a few years ago. So he's a good brother.
Now, how many people are getting charged on July 3rd? I can find the specifics. He's going to Nashville, Tennessee. How many?
10.
10 people.
10
oh
people.
My gosh.
And one of them was a Holocaust survivor.
Was a what?
One of the women that was there, she was in a wheelchair. She is a Holocaust survivor.
Whoa, that's shocking. That is shocking. And then it's happening again in August in the state of Michigan. So Cal Zastro could get, 11 years in Tennessee and then 11 years in Michigan. He's a 70-year-old man facing 22 years in federal prison for saying stop murdering babies. It's ridiculous. So we do have a moral problem in the United States of America.
We do.
And we will repent.
And I think, again, and again, there's, and I say this generally, not specifically, because again, there are a lot, like you mentioned, Gabriel Olivier. Gabriel Olivier, he's one of those guys, good brother. There are lots of people like that in this country still. You look at the story of Sodom and Gomorrah and God's interaction with Abraham, and he would talk about how, you find 5 people, 10 people, would you not destroy the city? So the fact that America still exists means that there are still people here, good, godly men and women. But we have to really start, at least in my opinion, and from what I see when I'm out there, I travel the country preaching, what is really stop caring so much about what people who hate God think about us. Because when you ask them, they say we preach hate speech or we're hateful or that, the other. And I always ask this question when I'm out in public. I say, define hate and define love. Tell me, give me the definitions of those things. And of course, the definitions I get are usually about how they feel. And I said, well, the thing about it is love is not a feeling. Love is an action. The Bible says we don't love in our word and speech. We love in our actions and in truth. So if your definition of love depends upon how you feel, then your definition of love is about yourself. It's about selfishness. See, when I go out and preach as Christians, we don't need to go out there and we don't want to tell you some things that you want to hear. We tell you what you need to hear. And we need to start telling people that no, God does not love you in your sin. Okay. When you are doing these things, when you're butchering babies, when you're out here doing these things in front of these people here, when you're,
You're having sex out of marriage.
sex out of wedlock, all these things. I'm glad you said that. Most Christians don't talk about that.
I like to talk about it because that's a big problem for me because I'm not married. Sex out of marriage is a really big problem for me. I try to follow the 10 Commandments. And when I do, Jesus Christ watches over me and my path is glorious. But when I violate it, I do have problems. So I'm just telling you my weaknesses. It's a big issue.
But the thing is, there's people that say, well, you know what? I'm a Christian. I'm going to do these things regardless. There's a difference between, like a drug addict who.
Woo, we lost Rich again. Rich is one of my favorite people. I really respect the Christian pastors the most in the world. And I respect the street preachers. And I respect all people who stand up.
I'm going to do it anyway. Yeah.
Okay. We lost you again. Go for it.
Well, I was saying there's a difference between struggling with something and saying, Lord, I don't want to have this. I want to live right and holy versus just saying, you know what? I'm a Christian. God loves me no matter what. There's a big difference between those two things. But God can work with somebody who's repentant. God can work with somebody who acknowledges and says things like, Lord, I know this may be wrong. I know this is sin, and I don't want to live in sin. I want to live holy. So God, help me overcome this. A genuine desire to overcome sin is what God is looking for. He's not looking for the complacency. He's not looking for well, guys, I'm going to go get drunk and go get laid tonight. He's not looking for those. He's looking for the Davids that are willing to stand up to the Goliath when Goliath is insulting our God. Little shepherd boy David took a slingshot and slung it and hit Goliath in the head, and it sunk in his head. God is looking for the men and women who are willing to stand up and say, I've had enough. Not just say it, but actually stand up and say, I'm done with this. And, you think about it, these abortion clinics, these, what you saw in San Francisco, I see it all the time. That to me, that was horrible. But when you're out preaching these things all over the country, go to Atlanta Pride. How about that one? Those two darlings of the LGBT in Atlanta. How about that? Those two guys that were raping their adopted son and pimping him out on Snapchat. Nobody talks about that story anymore, but that happens all the time. We need to get that under control. And every Christian out there, every time there's one of these perverted, wicked events, should go out there and stand against it. Because if we did that, they wouldn't happen anymore. If people saw Christians standing up and saying, we're not going to allow this in our cities, it would stop. If Christians stood outside of abortion clinics, they would stop. That's what we need to do. We need to put action behind our faith. We need to not just talk about it on social media platforms that control the narrative and can control the flow of information. We need to go beyond that. We need to step outside the church parking lot. We need to raise our voice like it says in Isaiah 58:1. He says, raise your voice like a trumpet. Do not hold back. Tell my people their sin. And then we'll see change. When Christians get the courage to stand against what looks like the Goliath in America.
That's really powerful. Thank you so much for coming on tonight. I appreciate you so much. And I really want to keep updated because you are winning in Oklahoma so far.
We have one there. And you said my lawyers, if you want to, they put out a press release about the win because that was a win. I mean, we're 3 for 3 now going against these LGBT people when they try to do something against me. We've won every time. So we beat them in the schools. We beat them at the court in Oklahoma. And we were against the police. We were against the judge, and we still won. We had another activist I sued for slandering me on Facebook. I won $10,000 from her for that. So
that is amazing. Okay.
Yeah, we're 3 for 3. We will be at the RNC. We'll be preaching at the RNC. I don't know if you're going to be there. Yes,
you're going to be in Milwaukee?
Yes, ma'am.
Wow. Okay.
One of the guys that was at WeSpa will be there with us too.
Wow. Okay. Let's see if God gets me to Milwaukee if I'm supposed to be there. That is really powerful. Do you think that President Donald Trump will free all of the Christian political prisoners of the Biden regime?
I hope he
With
does.
respect to yeah, he says he will. He says he will with respect to the pro-life activists who are currently sitting in federal prison.
See, that's why I like Donald Trump, because he's one of those guys, he doesn't care. Like, he's going to do what he thinks is right. And if he, he doesn't care what other people think about it. And that's one of the reasons why, a lot of people are, I'm not voting for Donald Trump. Well, you know what? I'm not voting for a pastor. I'm voting for a president, and Donald Trump, whether you like him or not, I could care less. I love the guy. He does what he thinks is right. And he does do what he says he's going to do. Good, bad, or indifferent, doesn't matter. At least he does it. And if he says he's going to do it, I believe he's going to do it. And I stand behind him on that.
Okay, so we all have to make sure that President Donald Trump gets back into the White House in November, because we have a lot of work to do. It's not the end all be all, but it's the next step in the freedom movement. And we have to do it.
Every Christian, I don't care if you like Donald Trump or not, if you don't vote for Donald Trump, I want you to think about this, Christians. A lot of Christians say they didn't vote for Trump because of abortion. Trump is not a king. He's the president. He's not supposed to have unlimited power. He can't just wave a magic wand and make it go away. But you know what? He did what he could with his power. He got rid of the abortion and overseas stop funding it. He did what he could here in this country. So the Christians that didn't vote for him when Biden got in and put all the money back into abortion, some of that is on your hands. Some of that blood is on your hands. So you know what? How about you just vote for him? Stop, he will end, us funding abortion. He did it before, he'll do it again. He put the Supreme Court justices on there, and guess what? They overturned Roe v. Wade. That was Donald Trump that did that. So
he gave us really good Supreme Court justices.
That's right. He did what he could do as president. And as a Christian, every one of us should support him because of that. So don't throw away your vote because of you want to be on your high horse. Vote for Donald Trump, and let's get some morality. I mean, the man talks about God more than anybody else out there, more than any president we've had.
And he is a real Christian.
So let's get him in, get Biden out, because you know what? If Biden wins again,
we're going to be in so much trouble.
We're screwed. It's over.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I agree. Well, thank you so much, Rich. I hope you come on again and we can talk about anything that you think is newsworthy. And I pray that I get to meet you if God brings me into Milwaukee.
Will you tell me what you need and we will help get you there?
Thank you so much, because what I'm really worried about is I'm worried about the case of Jesse Boyd in Montana. Jesse Boyd and I became very close when Gabrielle Olivier got arrested in front of me at the U.S. Capitol, and Jesse Boyd is facing 20 years in the state of Montana. He's an amazing father. He and his daughter and her daughter's fiance and one of his other really good friends, they were carrying a life-size cross across the state of Montana, and they got physically attacked, and the police, the sheriffs in their little territory that they were in, turned the whole case against them. So that's a case that's going to be really important, and I really want to go with you guys there when that happens in September, because I haven't found anyone in U.S. Congress who cares about the case of Jesse Boyd in Montana. And I haven't found, I don't know who the governor of Montana is. I have no interaction with Montana. But believe me, I'll go to the congressman. I think his name is Rosendale. I'll go to Rosendale's office, but he's about to retire in November, so he may not care. These elected officials pretty much only care about themselves.
That's right. Montana, that story. So I was actually in Austin, Texas, when a brother reached out to me and he said, "Hey, did you hear about this?" And I said, "No." And he goes, "We need you, because I'll go everywhere. I don't care. I'll travel the country and go out and stand out there with a bullhorn. I don't care. I got a big half-mile hailer now." And he's like, "We need you to go out there and bang the drum, make some noise on this." And I said, "What happened?" And he told me the story. I guess they were late at night, whatever. And he was defending his family, and the cops turned around, and there's more stuff going on, which we could talk about, not publicly, about some stuff that I found out's going on there in Montana with a hotel there. There's some really,
it's evil.
Yeah, there's some really strange, but Montana is not the state a lot of people think it is.
Well, this particular area is psycho.
Well, there's some trafficking going on there, and the people that involved with in his case, the guy that is involved with the Boyds, the one who attacked him,
turned them in. Mm-hmm.
He tied into that.
Whoa! So there's trafficking going on in Montana.
In a little tell
Well,
that
it's
he
all going to be exposed. If they don't free Jesse Boyd and his daughter and everyone involved in this case, journalists like me are going to be in Montana exposing it. And believe me, I can get 500,000 views, God willing, when the time is right. You know, I can get enough views to make this a huge situation in Montana. They should just free him and let him go, because it's not good to cross us when we really are united in prayer.
That's right. And
The
and
next
this,
case, the next case I'm following, obviously, is the Christians, Cal Zastro, on July 3rd. What his sentencing will be in Tennessee, but after that, it's going to be Tina Peters. She's the election, the county commissioner in Mesa County, Colorado, who is facing 20 years in federal prison. Her case starts July 31st, and then after that, I mean, it just progresses. Then it's Cal Zastro again in Michigan, and then after that, it's going to be Jesse Boyd. I mean, it's just never ending. I've never seen so many people get arrested, and this just has to stop. We can't have this many American patriots arrested in a presidential time. This hasn't happened since the Civil War.
right. It's not even, it's Christians too. And the thing is you heard about
They're
these.
all Christians. Everyone I see arrested is a Christian.
And it's funny because the names you're mentioning are all people that I know. We're all kind of tied in together, but it's only the people, if you think about it, that are public, that have public platforms that people know. What about the people that don't have these platforms?
Well, that's what I cover.
What's happening to them?
They're getting tortured, and I cover all of that.
Artur Pawlowski in Canada. Do you know him?
I love him. I've interviewed him so many times. He's free right now. He's free.
Artur came to America, and we introduced him to Eric Trump, and Governor Lee. Dale, the one who gave you my number. Actually, I called Dale and I said, Dale, hey, Artur's coming. Artur's a street preacher. Artur's tied into our group here in the United States. He when he's here, he always wants to see us and have lunch with us, things like that.
Oh, you consider Pastor Artur a street preacher?
He considers himself a street preacher because he does.
I always call him pastor. I love him.
Well, he's a pastor too. He is a pastor, but he is a street preacher. He does go out in the street and preach. It's one of the things that got him in trouble. For feeding homeless, what the Bible says to do.
Especially when the pandemic happened in Canada, yes.
But he said what he sees in America when he was here with churches and all that stuff, what happened to him is coming here. And you just pointed out all these Christians that are getting arrested. I've been to jail. All these guys these guys are going to jail more than likely, it looks like. I mean, we pray that there's some divine intervention there for them, but it's going to get worse if we don't do something. And Biden, we already know he's going after Trump and this lawfare, which means they'll do it to us too, because we're not Donald Trump, so we don't have the means to protect ourselves like he does.
Okay, well, I'm in 100%. I mean, I keep on running into your clan, your group of street preachers, and it's so important because you guys are the real deal truth. And the persecution of Christians has officially begun in the United States of America, and we cannot keep our God-fearing status as a country. We can't keep our freedom when Christians are getting arrested this often and this much. The next person I'm bringing in is a Christian man who's a very good friend of mine, and he just got arrested by the FBI this last week. So please pray for us.
I forgot to tell you this one. The FBI came to my house.
When?
It was 3 of them. It was 2 males and a female from the Joint Terrorism Task Force. When I first moved to Oklahoma, they came to my house in a big black Suburban. What year is this?
It
was last year. And they pulled up 2 years ago. I'm sorry. They pulled up and they said,
2022 or 2023?
2022.
Okay.
He pulled up and he pulled a badge and said, "You Rich Penkovsky?" I said, yeah. He goes, "You're not in any trouble or anything." And my wife goes, "What did you do now?" And I said, "There's some homo stuff, isn't it?" And he said, "Yes, can we come in and talk?" And I knew that they were trying to see what was going on. So I said, "Sure, come on in."
You let the FBI in your house? You're not supposed to do that. Oh my God.
I was armed at the time too. I was carrying a gun. And he looked, he said, "No, you're fine." I said, "Okay." And he came in and I said, "These guys are checking me out to see what's going, whatever." So he says, "We got a phone call that says you're escalating in violence." And I said, "I'm escalating in violence?" I said, "When have I ever been violent?" He says, "Never." I said, "So why are you here?" And I said, "And how did you even know I was here? I literally only moved here like 2 weeks ago." And he said to me these exact words. He goes, "We are the FBI." And he says, "Did you make a video where you said that homosexuals are worthy of death?" And they had the transcript. And I said, I did. I read a Bible verse. And I said, but did you watch the whole video? He said, no. I said, well, if you watch the whole thing, you would hear what I said. And I said, the Bible says it's a capital crime. However, I also said it's not our job to do that. That's your job. The government's job is there to punish the wicked, not mine. He goes, oh, okay. So then he goes, are you in like some kind of bunker or anything like that? I'm like, no, it's a green screen. And he goes, can I see it? And I said, sure. And he walked back and saw it. And then he goes, okay, well, you need anything, just give us a call. And I said, okay. And then he said, have a good trip to Utah. And I said, what? He says, have fun in Salt Lake City. I said, how'd you know he was going there? He goes, we know everything you're doing. I said, are you kidding me? I said, I guess I got an FBI file now. He goes, oh no, you've had one. And then he admit, I've never been charged, convicted of any crime. I've never done anything violent my whole life. But yet he said he confirmed me that they are keeping tabs on me. And I'm just a street preacher. So.
Why are they so intimidated by Christian preachers?
I don't know. Maybe because
we need to get Biden out of the White House. This is out of control. This is disgusting.
Agreed.
America was built on Christian principles.
That's right. Even our bankruptcy system is built on Judeo-Christian principles. The 7-year thing, do you think they just picked that randomly? No, that comes from Judaism. The 7-year Jubilee. You reset.
What's the truth? What's the truth about the Muslims? I got pretty much accosted by Muslims today in front of the Supreme Court. What's the truth? Because it's not the Jews that are the problem.
No.
Honestly, it's really not the Jews that are the problem. No,
it's the Muslims. The Muslims worship Allah.
It's the Muslims. I love it. You're brave enough to say it. It's the Muslims that are the problem. Look at this congresswoman in Michigan. She just had a rally. Her name is Congressman Ilhan Omar. She's disgusting.
Ilhan Omar. Yeah.
And she wasn't even speaking English. She was speaking Arabic in Michigan.
But did you see
Michigan? Oh no, it was Milwaukee. Wait, it was Milwaukee. Oh, it was Minnesota. Sorry,
Minneapolis. But did you see the president of Somalia said on camera? He said in a meeting, it's important that they have her in Congress to represent them.
No, it's important that we represent us. I'm so sick of this. Thank God you have the courage to say this, because they are witches, and they will come up to me in Washington D.C. and curse me. So that's why I need pastors and preachers like you around me, because I get cursed by evil all day long. What happened today in front of the Supreme Court? There is a witch in front of the Supreme Court today who curses me.
But you don't remember this, but I think I actually ran into you during Biden's inauguration in DC. We were preaching at the White House, and I think you, and I guess you had your cell phone with you. And
I always have my cell phone.
You were broadcasting something. It was me, Ruben Israel, and I mentioned that name because Dearborn, Michigan used to have the largest Muslim gathering. You notice they don't have that anymore. That's because Ruben Israel, well, he went there with a pig's head because the cops weren't going to protect him. So he went with a pig's head, a frozen pig's head on a stick to try to keep the Muslims away. Well, the Muslims started stoning him. Then
they threw rocks at him in Michigan.
They threw rocks at him. And then the cop blamed him. So he sued and won. And that case, if you remember Donald Trump's second impeachment, the Bible believers versus Wayne County, that was a street preacher's case. That was Ruben Israel's case that he won.
I mean, I wanna hang out with you guys because it's gonna get bad even when President Trump comes back to Washington, D.C. Even if President Trump wins everything in November, we still have cities like Chicago that are ruined. We have cities like Detroit, Michigan, that's disgusting. I actually had to walk through security systems to prove that I wasn't carrying arms. There were shootings everywhere. I had an Uber driver who was tape recording me and posting about me all over X. I mean, it's just, Michigan's disgusting. So the bottom line is that we have to clean up our cities. So President Donald Trump coming back to the White House is just the next step. But after that, we're still in a war zone. Gabriel Olivier was telling me about Jackson, Mississippi. Mississippi has a crazy African mayor who doesn't care about white people at all in Jackson, Mississippi.
Others that they put in jail in Jackson, Mississippi for preaching, they put him in there with a $500,000 bond because he said that if you don't turn your sin, God's going to throw you in hell, whatever. They got let out, obviously, but that city put 2 Christians in jail for terroristic threats for preaching. For preaching. I mean,
do you guys have lawyers that get you out? How did you get out of that?
Yes,
Okay.
we do. Rutherford Institute. Those guys are a great group of guys. If you need lawyers, contact them. Will at Rutherford Institute. We have Rick Nelson. We have Nate Kellum. We even have a guy in Michigan. He's retired, but I might be able to call him to see if he knows anybody that can help. I was listening to the last guy to see if there's anything he can do to help in Michigan.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. I mean, you got to keep me updated because I do the Christian conservative news, and the more that I meet all y'all out there, you Christian preachers, I just love you guys, and I feel so much safer knowing that you exist in the United States of America, because obviously I'm based in Washington, D.C., so my
Right.
scope is very limited, but just
Right.
knowing you're going to be in Milwaukee makes me feel so safe, because
Well,
the
we're all-
evil we're about to encounter is going to get out of control, and hopefully it doesn't get violent and volatile, but it could, because the Muslims are the problem in the United States of America at this time. Not the normal sweet Muslims, but the radical Muslims. There are sleeper cells in pretty much every single state.
Kick them out. They are not here. Listen,
How do we do that? How do we kick the Muslims out?
Understand who they are. They are not here. Islam is not a religion like we think it is. It is masquerading as it's a political ideology masquerading as a religion to take advantage of freedom of religious laws. They are here on a jihad. They are here on a bloodless jihad. They're here to outbreed us. They're here to take over without firing a single shot. They are not. Their entire system, their entire ideology is inconsistent with ours. They don't come here to assimilate to our culture. They come here to force us to assimilate to theirs. They do not belong. And I'm sorry, if they want to come here and be American, all that stuff, fine, great. God bless you. But if you're here and you think I got to conform to your ways and you Sharia law and all that, get them out. If they are not here, they're not here legally, I don't care. One-way ticket, get them out. And if we got to do it, then so be it. Get them out of here.
That's why we need men like you to be armed and dangerous, because if they call Sharia law, which could happen any day now, one of my favorite men, I don't know if you know him, it's Pastor Michael Bennett, and he is a pastor from Oklahoma, and he is a specialist on what happens if they call Sharia law. They attack us from within, because under the Obama regime at the White House, under Obama's presidency, he actually gave AK-57s and guns to these Muslim sleeper cells. That's unacceptable. We need to kick them out of America, and we need people in Congress who have the courage to do that. Do you think we can ever do that? Having Trump in the presidency is just the next step, but then kicking out all these radical Muslims, people who don't respect our U.S. Constitution. Anyone who doesn't know the First Amendment needs to leave the United States of America. And that's my Corinne rant of the evening. If you don't know the First Amendment by heart, you need to leave the United States of America, because you're only as good as what you're willing to fight for.
Everybody should have one of these on their desk in their office, a copy of the Constitution of the United States of America. Everybody, and I recommend getting a good dictionary too. 1879. If you want to know what gender is, it says it right here. Defined here as sex, male and female. It's what it says in 1879, Webster's Dictionary. But the Constitution is here on my desk, and I encourage everybody to read the Constitution, because if you don't know your rights, you can't stand up for them. We have the right to free speech, and the Second Amendment is there to protect the First Amendment.
Yes, and you should walk with the Constitution, because it is a serious crime to violate the Constitution. So if you're in the right county with the right sheriff, they will stand up for your rights. So that's a whole nother topic. But I really want you to come on again, Rich. Thank you for being so patient. I've had a crazy day.
No problem at all. I'll tell you
God
some more
bless
stuff
you.
that happened later on too when we're off.
Oh, I'm
about
ready.
my involvement with CPS and what they tried. You're gonna like that story.
Okay, I'm ready. I'm totally ready. Next Monday, whenever you're ready, we'll
Okay.
go for it. Okay,
Sounds
have a beautiful evening with your children. Thank you.
You too. God bless you. Thank you.
Bless you. Peace. You know, July 4th at 12 noon at the U.S. Capitol in Washington, D.C. is going to be the National Day of Repentance. So 12 noon in Washington, D.C. at the U.S. Capitol. Now, me inviting you to the U.S. Capitol 12 noon on July 4th in Washington, D.C. could be traumatic for my next guest, my beloved friend, Tommy Tatum. I love you, Tommy.
Hey,
Tommy
can you hear
just
me?
got arrested by the FBI. How many days ago, Tommy?
It was
I
on
cried.
Wednesday. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm making sure. Yeah, it was Wednesday, and sorry that you cried. I appreciate it, I guess.
I was going crazy. I was calling David from Stop Hate, crying hysterically. I had to go to a party for young Republican women where Lauren Boebert, Congresswoman Lauren Boebert was speaking.
Jesus Christ.
1 second. I hit something on my computer.
Oh man,
And
we
I
have
hear two
weird
of you now.
Who literally
Yeah.
sat in his basement
Hold
the whole
on.
campaign. Wins
So,
an
I'm
election.
playing,
I've been on
there's,
stage events.
there's a
I've been-
YouTube
I've
feed of this
been to
somewhere is what I gotta
Texas
find.
thing.
got arrested for what he did not do on January
Just
6,
let him do it.
2021 at the U.S. Capitol this last Wednesday. And I was calling David from Stop Hate, who is the best man alive on planet Earth. You go to stophate.com. And I was just crying uncontrollably on the phone. And behind me, I'd been in Congress all day, videotaping Democratic Congress people saying ridiculous stuff. But I got 500,000 views on Congressman Swalwell just asking him, does he think that Merrick Garland should be arrested? And he just ignored me. But do you really want to pay for people in Congress who just ignore me? Because you guys know, when you look at me, I'm one of the most genuine journalists in Washington, D.C. I have no idea what I'm doing half the time, but I do get the real story at the end of the day. I don't really like to write, but let me tell you something. If there's a story good enough, I give it to my friends who are writers. Just today, I was talking to my friend who writes for the Gateway Pundit. I can give him any story that's worthy. And then I was with my friend Kaylin today, who was on the show earlier from the Washington Times. So all I do is hang out with writers. I'm not personally writing. I write a newsletter for who to pray for every single week, but I'm not writing because I'm so overwhelmed just keeping track of who's getting arrested, what's happening in Washington, D.C., what's the truth about the Supreme Court. And now I'm trying to identify who the feds are, because there's going to be another setup before the November election. Our beloved, one of my favorite people in the world, Steve Bannon, he's just the most beloved newscaster ever. He just had to turn himself into federal prison today in Danbury, Connecticut. I cried when I was watching the footage. I should have been there, but there were tons of people there. He had Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. He had his daughter Maureen with him. He's spending 4 months in federal prison because he did not answer a subpoena from the corrupt January 6th committee. Can you hear us, Tommy? Are you back?
Yes, I'm sorry. There was a web page open playing in the background. So
That's
I was
okay.
saying thank you. I didn't mean to make you cry, but it's good to hear that you care. And I will let your viewers know you're not lying. Corinne will give good stories to other people. And I always tell everybody, nobody has heart like you do, Corinne.
I get really upset and really emotional.
Well, I don't mean that. I mean, you are very compassionate, but what I mean, but you're not afraid to go ask the hard questions from people.
So did you know that the FBI was going to arrest you?
So I'll
Because
tell
I
you
saw the search
briefly.
warrant, and
Yeah.
the search warrant said May 2024.
Yeah, I don't know why they. Yeah, it was done in May 1st. I read. So real quick, I had done a bunch of stories, and you guys were just talking about Jackson, Mississippi, and I live like 90 minutes away from Jackson, and that guy there's a clip of him saying he wants to make Jackson, Mississippi, the most radical city on the planet, and his father was another Marxist communist who came down from the Detroit area back in, say, the 60s, maybe even a little earlier. And there are these Marxists that communists like Benny Thompson is. They're all friends, right? So I reported a bunch of crimes in my local town to the FBI in the summer and fall of 2020. And so when they called me, they acted like they wanted to talk about those murders and rapes and sex trafficking and all that. But I kind of didn't believe them. I kind of figured they was going to arrest me, and I didn't want them to SWAT my house. My mother's here, and they usually play, with the whole SWAT team, the flashbangs, all that. So I agreed to drive 2.5 hours away to meet them in Oxford, Mississippi. So that's how as soon as I walk in the door, they arrest me. We want to talk to you. They had flown to
Wait, I think
DC
Tommy,
special-
that you and I need to meet in Jackson, Mississippi, and expose this corrupt mayor that's taken over Jackson, Mississippi.
Well, I have the mayor that I'm dealing with. Those stories are from my hometown in Washington County, and it's about that mayor, Eric Simmons. His brother's a state senator, Derek Simmons. They're twins, and this sheriff here in Washington County that's been killing people, selling dope, running sex trafficking rings, all of it. So that was what I reported to the FBI. And just like I told these agents the other day, I said, what happened with all that? I said, I called you up. I had cops come into my house shooting at me at one point in time. And I told
With
them
your
all that,
mom
and I'm
there
like,
last Wednesday?
yeah. I
Okay,
put out a
tell us
story
everything.
about.
No, just start
No,
from
no, no.
Wednesday. What happened?
This event happened, like I said, in the summer and fall of 2020. There's actually video. There's on my YouTube channel. There's the videos of it. So I do these stories about the sheriff, the mayor, and all these people attached to Benny Thompson. And then that night, uh, carload of guys rode by my house, parked in the dark, and then I had my flashlight and shined it at them, whatever. And so they drove off a little bit and then shot back at me. And it's a whole long story about all of that. But trust me, they don't want to talk about any of that, and they ignore it. I mean, they literally ignore it. And I told them to that effect. I'm like, I told you guys about all that, and you left me there by myself for dirty cops to come kill me. So people always ask me, why did you never get arrested? Why did you never get arrested? I'm like, I don't know why. Maybe it's because of that stuff, or the fact that I was right beside a woman that the cops picked up a stick and beat to death with a stick, or the fact that I filmed parts of Ray Epstein, or that I filmed another team that broke some of the first windows at the Capitol that day. So
you went to the
I've
U.S.
always-
Capitol because you're a real journalist from Mississippi. And
yes,
you were
I had
filming.
started. The way I was even doing those stories is I had been running radio stations for 8 years, I think, and we had started
You've been running radio
an online
stations.
news site. Yeah, so we started an online news thing at the radio station, and then this is right about the time COVID hit, and where I live is the poorest part of the country, and selling advertising is the hardest thing ever to do anyway. Radio being the hardest probably. So and I felt led by God to start and do my own thing and start telling the truth about the what was going on around here. And one of my first stories was a bunch of road workers in Washington County called me, wanted me to come to the courthouse here in this county. And when I got there, it was a bunch of them, and they were upset about the county getting a young boy killed at work. He had been hired on a Monday and left on a road that Friday night to work by himself, and he ends up getting killed. So where I'm from, there is no news, right? You get the radio station, you get the arrogant little newspaper nobody reads, and corruption is literally sky high here. I mean, the cops kill people at will. Been doing it for 30 years. The politicians are out. In the same vein of that Jackson mayor we were just discussing, and also like your Benny Thompsons. These are all card-carrying communists if they're smart enough to be one. Or they're just thugs, gang members, cops killing cops, cops pimping people. And I still have all my witnesses. I still have my stories. So I've always kind of wanted to be arrested for all of this to come out in court, and also everything about Roseanne.
Tell us the truth, Tommy, about Roseanne Boylan. Who
Okay, so I'm
murdered
gonna give you
Roseanne Boylan
the
on January
truth,
5th?
and before I tell you, I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna preface it with this. I did the vigil, Corinne, in DC for over a year, and I've heard a lot of J6ers, and I've met their families and stuff. And the ones that were on that side of the Capitol with us, you will hear a lot of them say that a lot of things actually, but you'll hear people say that she collapsed from the gas, and you'll also hear other J6ers say they heard her screaming. Okay, now this is what I'm prefacing. I understand these guys, a lot of the times they were there for 3 seconds, got hit in the face, and then fell back down the stairs trying to help, whatever. And it's different for me because I was trapped beside Roseanne for 8 minutes, and I've seen all the footage. I watched all the body cams, all the CCTV, listened to all of it, helped make documentaries everywhere, all that. So this is what happens. At 4:21 p.m. at the back of the tunnel on the west side, a cop takes a pepper ball gun and he fires it 31 times. And if you listen to the body cam footage and know what you're seeing, I got video of him shooting the balls, you will hear everybody freak out and start gagging and coughing and panicking, cops and protesters alike. And before I move on, I do believe one of these pepper balls hit Roseanne in the face, because when the cops freaked out and everybody freaked out, they pushed everybody down the stairs. And Roseanne falls into me, and we fell on the ground. And when I look at her, as soon as I laid eyes on her, she was already unconscious, and she was already bleeding from the nose and the mouth. And I've seen the footage where I think the pepper ball hits her, and I think it's what bloodies her nose and her face. So we fall down, and people fall on top of me and her. You can't even hardly see us in the footage because we're there the whole time. You can see, when you watch the footage, you can see other men looking down at us, trying to help us, if you know what you're looking at. And so it was really, really violent. The cops never let up. They never eased up with the pepper spray, the pepper balls, rubber bullets. Some guys said grenade, whatever. And the gas, the CS gas and the pepper gas is everywhere. So it's hard to see and breathe. And they pushed us down. And we were there for a few minutes. And like I couldn't see anything for the first few minutes because everybody's falling on top of us. And it's black. And your eyes are burning from the CS, all of it. And I couldn't move because people were laying on my leg, and my leg was on beside the handrail right there. So at one point, all I could do really is put my head behind the handrail to keep it from my head from getting hit. And I was still getting hit a lot. But and I prayed. I was like, Jesus, please let there be a moment of calmness come over this crowd so we can get up and get away from here. And as soon as I did that, Jake Lane comes up and tries to save me. I want to mention one thing real fast. So I was just telling you how when Roseanne hit me and we fell into the ground, she was already unconscious. You'll hear the guys, like when I mean by the guys, the J6ers in jail or whatever, that were there on that side in that area, say they heard Roseanne screaming. And they're not lying, they're just not right. And it was not Roseanne. There was another woman there. Hardly anybody realizes this, but there was another woman there. And if you watch the body cam and listen to it, you'll hear an exchange between the cops and the protesters about, we'll help her, let her get up, at her hip. This is the woman they're talking about, not Roseanne. And I call her the Mexican girl because she looks like a friend of mine's girlfriend. And this bothered me more for a long time than Roseanne because I didn't know what really happened to Roseanne at first. But when this lady's laying on her stomach, her head would be facing towards the monument, and maybe her feet are maybe just inside the tunnel entrance. And one of the first things I can see is her and somebody trying to pick her up and her screaming. This is as loud as she could. I think it was breaking her back. So that is the scream the guys were hearing. Because it works with the timestamps and everything if you watch it. This is what happened. So when that happened,
Wait, so what happened to her? What happened to the Mexican?
Nobody knows. Nobody knows. This is why I bring her up all the time. It's like, I know. I'm telling you, it bothered me so bad the way she was screaming. It was like a woman's dying in front of you. You can't do anything. And I worried about her for a long time. And then it was like a couple months.
Can you find any footage on her? Because you watched more footage than basically anyone alive on planet Earth.
I have watched it all, and the closest I have gotten to it is the body cam in the tunnel, maybe 5 or 6 people back here. Of course, this is the body cam. I don't believe is complete. For example, there may be body cams of her that they've hidden or whatever. But so just keep that in mind when you hear guys say they heard her screaming. That they were reacting to a woman screaming, and they were trying to save who they saw and thought it was the screams. But regardless, they're trying to save us all, really. Okay, so what happened then? As soon as I said that prayer, God, please help us in that moment of calmness. Come over here so we can lay. As soon as I got that out of my mouth, Jake Lane, and I'll tell you how I know it's Jake Lane. But he comes up and he tries to pull me from the bottom of the pile, and I tell him, no, you'll break my leg, because of the way my leg was wrapped. And I said, go save those people because they're dying, and pointing to the other people in the pile because they were dying. They were losing conscious, with their eyes were slowly closing, and the ones who weren't were screaming, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. And so I tell everybody, when you look at that West Side footage, it looks so violent because it is violent. But if you're going to judge these men properly, nobody takes into effect what they were hearing. You know what I mean? And it went on forever. It went on for 7 minutes. And the longer it went on, the more desperate the screams sounded, because they were getting more desperate. They were dying. And a lot of the guys reacted. A lot of those guys were military guys, saved to train lives. So they ran to it and then, had their exchanges, whatever they may be. Okay, but let me point this out. When Jake tries to save me, I tell him that, and he lets go. And then I've seen this in the footage. I think he reaches down and tries to move Roseanne, and I think he realizes that he couldn't do anything because she was already unconscious, but she was still alive. And when he whenever he realizes that he can't move her, he gets in between the cops. And there's footage of this, and they're spraying the pepper spray between his fingers, and it's falling down on us, and he's yelling, "You're killing them! You're killing them!" So I know Jake helped save my life. He pulled Philip Anderson out of the
Jacob
pile.
Lang saved your life.
Yeah, I say he helped save my life, and I'll tell you why. It's not that he couldn't pull me from the bottom of the pile up because my leg was trapped. So when I say he helped try to save my life, I'll tell you how it happened and how he actually probably saved 4 or 5 lives.
No,
When
but
that
Jacob
happened-
Lang's in prison right now.
Yeah, he's in the hole.
They threw him in
confinement.
solitary.
So what happens when he does that? You can see if you watch the footage, not that the cops stop completely, but there were moments all day long where people would get tired and they'd stop fighting, and then agitators or bad cops, they would start it back up. Because it's human nature not to fight constantly for minutes and minutes and minutes. There was lulls, and this kind of caused one of those. They looked and they kind of looked down on the ground, and Jake's up there, and that causes a moment of separation to where I could start to try to get up, and it did cause. The reason I say he saved several other lives, I believe that if he hadn't have done that and caused that moment, that the people in the pilot would have died, like Philip Anderson, who was literally unconscious at one point when Jake does grab him out of there, pull him out of there. So as that's happening, Jake's got his hands up. I'm praying. So I always want to tell everybody the prayer I said, and I always want to make sure people realize this. Because how you said there's a Bible verse that says, if you call my name, I'll save you. I'm paraphrasing. And we're growing up in school and young adults or whatever, you always think they mean for you to go pray to be patient, pray for a good wife, pray for a good job, and somewhere down the road it'll come true, right? But I literally called out to Jesus, and he saved me as soon as I got the prayers out of my mouth. And that's kind of my testimony. I don't want people to get this. It just impresses upon me is like, have you ever had a prayer answered as soon as you said it? In such a memorable way. So
That's a
what
powerful
happened-
experience. I had that happen tonight, Tommy, on
Did you? On what?
I just had someone donate $2,500 to my
No
work
way.
in the
Yeah,
middle
that's
of the
God.
show a couple hours ago, anonymously.
So people are appreciating what you're doing, So just to finish that
Because you
off,
know
real
how
quick.
tough DC is.
It's a
By the
lot
way,
of
I
work.
want
That's why
everyone
I've
to know
never
that I
done
met
one.
Tommy Tatum. It's a lot of work. We got to get you in
I re-
perfect sound, perfect lighting. We got to get you everything. But the bottom line is that I met Tommy Tatum in 2022. When did I meet you?
Mhm. I think it was September of
January,
22 at
February.
a press conference Ned Lang had for Jake. Remember?
It was
It was a press
September.
conference.
2022?
I believe so because Guy Reffitt's
No,
trial
I met
started a
you
couple
in
weeks ago.
January. I met you in like March.
Oh, man. It was right when the
of
Ukrainian
2020.
war was starting. It was right when the
You
Ukrainian war
invited
was
me
starting.
to the first J6 trial. You
Yeah.
invited me to the trial
And then the
of
Ukraine
Cole
war.
Reffitt's
I'm
husband.
forgetting the timing of it. There's been so much happening. But yeah, I'm sorry to cut you off. But remember
No,
we
it's
went
okay.
down to the White House and the Ukraine war was starting and had everybody out there lobbying for war, a bunch of Democrats wanting war. And little did we know that they were wanting us to send $200 billion to a bunch of Ukrainian Nazis. But, anyway, I
We've been
digress.
through so much. I don't know how we're not traumatized. We're traumatized.
I found all those videos earlier when I was waiting. I listened to all your guests.
Okay.
And I found all those
Post
videos when we were
us.
down there talking to them. Code Pink was down there. You remember them? Code Pink.
I
They were
like
actually
Code Pink.
against the war.
I don't care what anybody says. I love Code Pink. They are
She tried
so
to make
sweet.
friends with us.
The founder,
Cindy
her name
Sheehan
is
tried to make.
Medea Benjamin. She's so nice. But listen, when they protest at the U.S. Capitol, they all just get a slap on the wrist and a $50
know.
fine. They don't
So-
face the rest of their lives in jail. Do you think the FBI is going to try to throw you into prison? The DOJ, the FBI arrested you. Do you
I
think
think
the
they would love
DOJ is
to.
going to try to throw you in prison?
I would think they would love to, but I don't think I'm ever going to trial really. And if I do, I have a presidential pardon coming, so whatever.
Do you think Trump can win in November?
Yeah, I think it's a foregone conclusion. The other guy's literally has his own party talking about how he's a corpse. on TV in front of everybody. They're freaking out. There's no way.
does.
Unless they do what they did last time and clearly and obviously stole the election 50 different ways, like your guest was talking about earlier. It is not one thing. The reason, and this is why people don't realize, like, illegal immigration is such a thing, is because those illegal immigrants don't even have to register. They don't even have to vote. I just moved 10 million illegal voters into my state, and then I know there's an excess 10 million people, and they registered. So when they're running their computers and everything, this is why he says it goes hand in hand. You have to have enough people there so you can print up enough ballots to make up the difference, right? When they look to see where they don't have enough votes, and then they rig it to where it goes straight up. That's why illegal immigration affects us a bunch of different ways. But look, let me finish with what happens with Roseanne, because I'm trying to give everybody credit, because it was a God thing. Luke Coffey, you know Luke.
I love
Right.
it.
Yeah. So as soon as all this is going on, and I'm able to start getting up, Luke Coffey, just moments before, said he had heard all this going on, people screaming for help, like I just described it a while ago, and he was there with a couple guys, maybe with kids and families or whatever, and they were worried about what was going to happen to them if they tried to help. And Luke has a very tragic, beautifully tragic story about a fiance of his who actually passed away tragically. I think it was a car wreck, maybe. So Luke says he prayed about it, and he said he saw scriptures falling from the sky. And he said he started up, getting a little closer, and he said he heard God say, "Go stand in the gap." And he does. He walks right up there. And it always such a thing for me to mention this about Luke, is because Luke literally puts himself in between me and a woman, DC female cop named Lila Morris. Luke literally puts himself in between me and her and Roseanne on the ground beside me, a little closer to her. He walks into that gap, and she attacks him with a stick, and then she hits Roseanne in the body and in the head twice. And I tell everybody, the reason I know that stick killed her is I was trapped beside her so long because she had this really pretty complexion on her skin, just unconscious and bleeding. And 2 minutes, less than 2 minutes probably, after she hits her in the head with that stick, she turns purple. You can see it in the footage. It's really hard to look at. So I know that's the strike that kills her. So when all that happens, I'm looking for Roseanne. As soon as I stand up, I'm looking for Roseanne, and I see looks like military guys training whatever, doing CPR on her. And I kind of look down the tunnel, and I'm so beat up. I've been like maced or pepper sprayed CS gas like 6 times. I'm drenched in it. So I go and I sit down for 45 minutes, putting water in my face, trying to make it stop burning. And then everybody left pretty much at around 5 o'clock. They got forced to leave. So I had dropped the phone on the steps of the Capitol. I was there with 2 other guys who eventually got arrested. I kept thinking it's just a matter of time before they come arrest me. They have my telephone. But they never did. And then I met Kara. I met you. The same weekend I met you, or week. It was the Guy Reffish trial, whatever time it was. I think it was
No, I
February
met you
March.
before the trial.
I can't remember.
You were in DC for some reason.
Well, the first time I don't know.
It was March. It was like
think
the
you're
end
right.
of February,
Yeah, because I went to February
2022.
for the press conference, and I stayed a week or so, whatever it was. And then that's where I met you along the way. Yeah. And then I ended up sitting in a Guy Reffish trial, the first January 6th trial.
So I met
And
you at a
then-
press conference that
For Jake Lane,
Lane's-
that Ned had put together a press conference for Jake, and I had literally just that week before, I realized who it was because I could recognize Jake's voice, and I wrote a story and sent it to the Gateway Pundit. Jake Lane helped save my life that day was the title of it, and they got us on the phone. It's on my YouTube right now. Me and Jake talking to each other for the first time. He's in jail. So I'm kind of rambling now, but through all that, I end up meeting Kara. I end up meeting. So what happens with that is Mickey goes and starts the vigil, and when I say Mickey, this is actually Babbitt's mom, but she starts the vigil outside the DC jail, and she actually gets assaulted, Corinne, by one of the guards. Do you remember that? So Kara was like, "Well, I know a big old boy named Tommy," and that was kind of my job. Was to go. I was Mickey's bodyguard, and then that was the whole reason why I went, because I only thought I was going for a week or two. and then it turned into years, right? And they still
So
do
you
it every
lived
night.
1 year in Washington, D.C.
Yeah,
with Ashley Babbitt's mom
and Nicole Ruffett
and Nicole Ruffett.
and Tammy. We were all the regulars, but
I
there were a
loved
lot of people like Gary McBride. Kara would stay there when she was trying to cover a story. Met hundreds. And
Where is
hundreds of
everybody
people.
now? The vigil still happens
Yes.
every single night
That's
in
a lot
front of
to
the
get. Look,
Washington, D.C. jail, 7:30 p.m.
you know that's
Eastern
why
Standard Time
It does.
at
Thank you. You can look on
1901
on YouTube on
East
1776
Street. But I want to give them the
Stormtrooper.
address.
Okay,
1901.
1901
street?
East D Street. Just type in Congressional Cemetery. They love when
Yeah,
I
it's
say this.
right down the street from the Congressional Cemetery.
And they can watch it on YouTube on 1776 Stormtrooper. You like
Okay,
Trooper? Everybody loves
It's
Trooper.
at 1901 East Street Southeast, Washington, D.C.
Yep.
20003 every night.
And if you can't remember
7:30
that,
p.m.
remember Congressional
Eastern
Cemetery. It'll
Standard
take you right to it.
Yes.
So that's kind of how I got into movement, Corinne, and met everybody. I ended up. Well, when I said I dropped my phone, I learned everything I could possibly learn about that day between that day and now, because I figured it was going to arrest me at some point in time. So they didn't try to charge me with the 1512. I actually got arrested the day before that law got struck down by the Supreme Court. So they charged me with civil disorder and four misdemeanors. I don't even know what any of the charges are for right now. They said something about I taunted the cops, and they said I pointed a flagpole at somebody. So I guess that's a felony. But they don't want to talk about Roseanne. They don't want to talk about Ray Epps' team I filmed. They don't want to talk about who I think's the Antifa team I filmed. And yeah, that's
When the
all kinda
FBI came to your mom's house in Mississippi on Wednesday, did they point a gun at your mom?
No, see, I remember I was saying earlier about the crimes and stuff. They called me and said they wanted to talk about that, and they told me it probably wouldn't be safe to be seen talking to us in your hometown. Well, I was like, well, that is true if they were real. But they asked me to drive to Oxford, Mississippi, which is like 2 hours from here. So they didn't come here, and I didn't want them to flashbang my mom's house anyway. So I was kind of glad.
How did you drive there? You drove 2 hours to meet the FBI, and then they arrested you.
Yeah, right on the spot. But they did release me same day.
Okay, did they charge you a bail?
So this is the thing. They gave me a $5,000 unsecured bail. You don't even ask them for any of this. They just do it. They just go through the motions and do all of it. But I might would have told them. I don't even want your bond. Just send me to D.C. Put me in the gulag. But I had to
You
drive my
said
mom's
that
car.
to them?
I know. I said I might would have had, but I had my mother's car, and I've talked to her about it since, and she does not want me to do that. But
How did you
I feel
raise
like
the
it-
5,000?
I didn't. That's what I'm saying. They just put it on paper, and then it's a $5,000 unsecured bond.
Okay,
So they
so they didn't
released
charge
it.
you anything.
No, not money. No.
Okay.
I
Okay,
think
and
that
they
I don't know.
gave you a new charge. Is this a new charge they gave you? Felony civil
Civil
disobedience.
disorder.
Because
Civil
they can't
disorder.
give you the 1512 anymore because we
They
won
actually
the
tried to.
1512 issue in the Supreme Court. They gave you felony civil disobedience.
It's called civil disorder. I'll tell you why they didn't do the 1512, other than the fact that the Supreme Court said it's unconstitutional. It's because when I waived my Fifth Amendment right to testify in Brian Mock's case last June, and they were going to try to hang that felony on me. And the little young prosecutor got mad, and he was like, "Why were you even there that day? You wanted to overturn?" I'm like, "No, I wanted them to follow the 12th Amendment of the Constitution of the United States of America, and have them, not us, Congress, decide to send the votes back to the states to be looked at for 10 days." And I said, per the Electoral Count Act of 1887, and then they objected. And all of a sudden, whenever I'm explaining why they can't charge me with that charge or how it's garbage, they object and say I'm no longer a professional. What is it? An authority, an expert. I'm no longer an expert. I'm like, okay, but 5 seconds ago I was, when you're trying to walk me into this felony charge. But my answer was true though. That's all I wanted to have happen, and I didn't even know we were going to walk to the Capitol that day. Uh, it's ridiculous. By the time I got there, it was 2:27 p.m. When I got there, I'm literally getting on to the Capitol steps. The White Rocks is what I call them, the White Steps. When I got there, it was 2:27 p.m. By this point in time, 2 minutes previous, the police fired a 40 millimeter CS gas canister. It hits the scaffolding, bounces back, and proceeds to gas every cop and 30,000 protesters. And then there are some Antifa type or feds, they're kind of the same thing nowadays in my book, on the, if you were looking at the Capitol on the right side, who were, they were instigating the cops all day long. But that's right where the line broke. So right when that's going on, I walk there. I'm arriving. And it's not like I even got to stand there and yell anything for a little while. It was just, it's on. And I ended up moving forward. And this is when they say I'm taunting the cops, because what had happened was I got there was somebody complaining about getting tear gassed. And then I kind of moved away from that. And then all of a sudden I heard an explosion behind us. And I thought it was a bomb at first. So everybody's instinct was to run away from the explosion. But when you did that, you only had a very short while to run or move forward until the cops are there. So for a little bit, somewhere in my mind, I'm trying to get away from the cops. And I also, one of my first things I saw was that guy who gets beat on the ground like Rodney King in front of 30,000 people. I saw that in the distance. And then I hear the bomb or whatever it was, it all kind of bang, bang, bang all together. So yeah, we were irate. We were upset that the cops were violating our civil rights and betrayed us and turned on us and started beating and killing us. And so that's whenever I think I don't know if this is the civil disorder or not, but taunting the cops. I never touched a cop, never hit one, never did any of that. I was calling them names. I was rebuking them in the name of Jesus Christ. And then I fall on the ground. Somebody steps on my shoes and I fall on the ground. And I'm just seeing black on the ground. And there was a lady. You can hear it on all of this is on my video. All the evidence they have is something I put out 3 years ago on my own YouTube channel, wanting people to talk about it. So that's what they brought up in Brian's case. So anyway, I get back up and I'm real excited and yelling at the cops and I'm holding a flagpole and it's down by my side. And anyway, they're saying that I was pointing my flagpole at the cops. I don't know if that's why I'm charged or what that is. But I know if you're, an Antifa member and you're in New York, you can throw little Molotov cocktails at cops and get on bail the next day. You can kill cops or punch them in the face, and or you can be Hamas and go try to threaten to kill a bunch of Jews on a college campus, and you don't. Or you can be on Capitol Hill as long as you're Hamas and obstruct federal proceedings all day long, and you don't get any trouble. So it's a bunch of communists, a bunch of Marxist communists who stole the government in 2020 and trying to put enough fear into the rest of the patriots that they won't do anything about it.
So we're in trouble. If Trump doesn't win, we're in big trouble.
I have no doubt Trump wins. I have no doubt that more Americans exponentially are going to vote for Donald Trump. I don't know if these communists will ever let the computer show that, but yeah, you know what I mean? We're not. This is not a half by half country. This country is like 80% Christian patriot and 20% godless commies. And you got some morons on both sides mixed in who don't know which way is up or anything that's going. But that's because of communist subversion. You guys were talking to the preacher earlier about why the church is this or that. That's the result. People don't think about it. That's the result of 70 years of communist subversion, demoralizing the people, right? To where that preacher is going to get in that church and he's not going to preach about homosexuality being a sin, which it most clearly is in the Bible, because the guy who sits on the board or donates a lot of money to the church, he's got a grandson that's gay. We don't want to upset him, right? So, or even the 501c3 when the government said you don't have to pay taxes if you're a church. But what comes with that on down the line is, you can't say this, you can't say that if you're going to be a tax-free organization, right? And they took away a lot of the services the churches used to provide to the people, like the homeless, single pregnant women, whatever the case may be. They took that out of the church's hands and gave it to the federal government. And all of this is a plan to destroy society so these godless communists can try to build their version of euphoric socialism on the ashes. So when you see people saying, "No, why do they believe boys can be girls? That's so crazy." They don't really. Not the people who are doing it. Like people who take up for it, they don't really believe that. They believe that's a way to erode societal norms. Now, the people who do that stuff, just real quick, the transgenders, I think they're demon possessed. Like, they're not dressing up like women, right? They're dressing up like an evil clown most of the time. Those are not women. That's a caricature of women. And their whole little theory is demonic, and it is satanic because they believe in a divinity of the female and a divinity of the masculine. And what could be more powerful than to have the female and the male intertwined as one, like the Baphomet, right? You follow me?
Yes.
And also,
Yeah.
so whenever in the Bible, whenever somebody's possessed by demons, who do they say they are? They say that we are legion. And what do these transgender weirdos say? We're they, them, right? They're literally saying the same thing. They are legion. Those are demons. And I think not only are they demons, I think almost every school shooting we've ever had, every mass killing, every terrorist attack on our country, I believe the FBI and the CIA's done all of it at this point.
Whoa!
Going back to the days of in Austin, Texas, when the guy climbed the tower and killed a bunch of people, which probably wasn't just him, but you know, there was no SWAT teams before that. Did you know that? There was no special weapons and tactics before he did that. And that guy, I think there was extra people there with him, but the official story was he was by himself, and he's firing every 20 seconds accurately. There had to be more people, but the story goes, because the cops couldn't do anything about this one human being in a tower shooting people all over the place, that they had to develop special weapons and tactics. And what that is that was the first step in militarizing the police. And now, you know, they can literally, a federal police force can literally cross the country, go into a sheriff's backyard, flashbang, and point guns at a family over misdemeanors. So I like what both of your guests earlier were talking about. Because, and it wouldn't have done me any good because my sheriff, his name is Sheriff Milton Gaston, he's the one that's been killing people. He's the one that's been selling dope, cops, the whole thing. There was a cop that got assassinated here 2 years ago, made national news. So he wouldn't protect my rights because I did a bunch of stories about how he's a murderer. But in a normal constitutional society, these FBI agents or whoever would have to call my sheriff up and get permission to come into his county to kidnap somebody for the federal government. But it doesn't really work like that.
So do you think that the 1512 issue that the Supreme Court ruled to get rid of is going to save how many J6
There's like 350 people, maybe 400, that were charged with the 1512. So, but there's about, I forget, like 20 or 30. I think maybe the only charge they have was that. And some of those guys were sitting in jail or have done their sentences already. But this is the thing. I knew that 1512 was going to fall the whole time. Well, real quick. So not only did the people who have the charges, there are a bunch of them who, because the DOJ was hanging that 1512 is a 20-year felony. It's like attacking a cop. You know what I mean? It's that bad of a sentence. So you better plead guilty to these other 4 misdemeanors, or we're going to give you this 1512, and you're going to go to jail for 20 years. So how do you adjudicate that in a courtroom? Like, I think every one of those guys should get, I think everybody should be released from jail no matter what process they're in this, and the judges need to start answering some questions. Because every one of those judges, 17 of them who think they're smarter and brighter than any other lawyer or judge anywhere in the country, because we're a bunch of dumb rednecks who like Jesus and Trump, right? But they were all wrong. The Supreme Court just shot down 15 of you. 15 of you people. 15 of you federal judges have been going along with the scam for 3 years. I don't think they have the right to judge another case at all, really. They have proven their judgment is shit, right?
I was talking to a lawyer today who's very high level. I can't say his name because he won't let me talk about him in public. But it's true. The judges in Washington, D.C., especially Judge Boasberg, Judge James Boasberg, are the problem. They are making unconstitutional rulings. They're not allowing evidence. They're violating the Fourth Amendment. They're violating the First Amendment. They're violating the Sixth Amendment.
Did you know Boasberg in particular is a Skull and Bones member?
I mean, I've talked to him. It's shocking.
He,
It
when I
doesn't-
was testifying in Brian Mott's case, and Brian Mott asked me what did I see in there, the entrance of the tunnel, my exact words were, "I witnessed the murder of of Roseanne Boylan by DC Metro cop Lila Morris," and the prosecutor was throwing his papers in there, and the judge is throwing his hands in there, and objection, and then they asked me some more questions. Anyway, I remember. So when the lawyer objected, Boasberg says, "Well, I cannot sustain or overrule delusion." So he called me delusional because their little line that they all had to go with, and keep in mind he's the chief federal judge. He sets the tone for everybody. Their little lie that these judges absolutely know is a lie. They sit on that bench and lie and pretend to lie every chance they get, unless they were so very ignorant in the very beginning not to know that Roseanne Boylan was murdered. I've seen them in one case say, "Well, that was a drug overdose, wasn't it?" Or like when I testify, before I get the words out of my mouth completely properly, he says I'm delusional because Roseanne Boylan is the name not to be mentioned in court. So when you brought up Boasberg, I thought of that. So
you don't think
crazy.
you're ever going to end up in court?
really just the timing of stuff. Trump's going to have the election in just a few months, and the way they've been charging everybody else, it takes a year and a half, 2 years to go to court trial anyway. And also, Trump's going to win, and Trump's going to fire every one of these DOJ lawyers. And also, they just got really embarrassed in front of the whole country and the whole world, the DOJ did, and they're going to have a lot of work to do with all these other people they've already screwed over with this 1512 following, right? They may have to, or
So they're just going to
or
drop
if they
the
put me in jail, if
1512.
they were to come pick me up right now and put me in the
Okay.
DC gulag, you know what would happen? Everybody's case immediately gets better because I'm gonna know where the footage is to tell their lawyer where to go. Have a photographic memory when it comes to it. So I don't care.
Well, that's an important point. You've watched pretty much more footage than anyone alive on planet Earth because in the beginning I thought Steve Baker watched more footage than you, but now he may not be able to watch the footage because he got
The thing
arrested
is,
for
the
January
thing is, I'm
6th.
not bought. I'm not saying anything about Steve Baker in particular. I'm not bought. I don't work for anybody. I don't even click up with the clicks inside the J6 stuff. You know what I mean? I talk to everybody. I deal with everybody. Except
But can they stop you from watching the J6 footage and reviewing it?
That's why
Okay.
they want it. They wanted my phone. They flew 2 special agents down here to get my phone. And I'll be honest with you, I haven't said or done anything on my phone I'm embarrassed about. I would hand my phone unlocked to a preacher and tell him to read it in church.
So they took your phone and they're not giving it back.
Yeah, I think they're grasping. They're reaching at straws. They think there's conversations I've had with people, this, that, the other. There's not. The only thing they're watching now is a bunch of stuff they hope never comes up in court.
Like what?
Like the murder of Roseanne Boylan over and over and over again.
But it's already
Dozens of
in court
videos.
and everybody ignores it and the judges
Yeah.
say it's not relevant. But it is relevant.
I haven't heard them say it's not relevant. In my case, they act like it doesn't exist, or they will tell other J6ers, that's not relevant to you because you were 20 feet away. Well, she was literally touching me and right beside me the whole time. I was there the whole time. So I've
That's
seen
why
it
the
before.
case of Luke Coffey is so
Uh-huh.
important.
Yeah.
Because he's the first person who really talked about Roseanne Boylan.
Yeah, and just the dynamics of what it looks like on video with him in the hat. You can see him easy. You can see her attacking him very easily, and all of it. But there's guys who went to court who didn't plead out because they wanted to talk about Roseanne. It meant that much to them, so they went and take a plea deal. And when they got to court, the DOJ will do stuff like this. They'll take the shot, the video of Roseanne being hit in the head with a stick by a cop, and they'll zoom in to where you can't see any of that, but you can see some guys touching the side of a cop's shoulder very lightly, like a feather. They'll show you that. See, that's a 20-year felony. He touched a cop. But they had just purposely not shown the woman getting murdered in front of that guy. That's the DOJ. That's the FBI. FBI goes along with it. There's not a decent soul who works for the FBI. At this point in time, every single one of them know, or they're the stupidest people on the planet, and they don't need to be walking around carrying guns to begin with. You know what I'm saying? Worse than that, they all know, and they're all complicit in helping this federal behemoth of a bureaucracy violate people's civil rights and criminally all the time. I wonder how many of the little black boys in Harlem had dope planted on them by the FBI or the federal government. I wonder how many Muslim kids at 12, 13 years old had the FBI talk them into becoming a terrorist. You know what I mean? I don't. They're
Wait, tell me about that. You think the FBI or federal assets, anyone who's a Fed asset, is brainwashing our children?
Yeah. Well, yeah. So what they'll do is, like, for example, there's probably thousands of cases of circumstances like I just described hypothetically. But for example, on 2001 bombing, I think this was actually the 91 World Trade Center bombing. The FBI had an asset, and they went to him, put the idea of building the bomb into his head, helped him build the bomb, and then they were supposed to put fake explosives into it. And this guy was an op. The guy who was running the op, the Fed asset, so it was getting out of hand, right? So he goes to the FBI and tells them, hey, they put real explosives in it. It's not a fake bomb, it's a real bomb. FBI does nothing about it. So I wonder how many little kids, how many people who maybe aren't as educated or have enough common sense or IQ maybe a little lower than other people not realize the evil that the FBI is. I wonder how many of them have been set up, basically is my point, when we weren't paying attention to them. Because all they care about is the promotion. All they care
So
about
that's
is
what I'm keeping track of now, Tommy. I was in front of the Supreme Court today, and the people, I met these two men in front of the Supreme Court. They weren't normal. I might post the footage.
I saw you talking
Have to
about that a
decide
little
to-
bit. I saw you
Yeah.
showing a little bit of it. So he
I
was
mean,
trying to, was he,
he was
trying,
wearing-
trying to provoke you, right? Into saying something stupid?
Totally. Yeah, totally trying to provoke me.
I
And
wish
then
I
I
was there
said,
for
where are
that.
you live streaming? And he said, TikTok. Like, why are you
Comedy.
live streaming on TikTok? He's propaganda.
Uh-huh. I wish I was there, but
No,
you know,
it's
I'm not-
okay. You don't want to deal with these people.
I would have
You don't want to
defended
deal
your
with
honor.
these people.
Remember when,
We need
what's her
you
name
in
showed up?
federal court testifying
Well,
about the truth of the footage you've watched. What is the most horrific censor ban footage you've watched in the J6 cases?
the Roseanne thing is the Roseanne. That's the most. Put it like this: when I could go to events around the country where people pay hundreds of dollars to go to things like CPAC, for example. So these are people who know politics. They're engaged, right? And at first, 9 out of 10 people, a room out of 100, maybe a handful, would know Roseanne's name or what happened to her. And I was telling somebody earlier, you know, Mickey at the vigil, I've watched Mickey cry for Roseanne too, because we have that big picture over there. And she says the only reason people know her daughter's name is because they accidentally live streamed her murder to the world, right? So, you know, when I say if it's censored, I think that would be. And the only way Gary McBride kind of found it, because MSNBC on Morning Joe accidentally played the footage. And it just looked like random violence to them. They didn't realize that they were showing the murder of Roseanne Wooling up to the world. Nobody really realizes it. And when you start looking at the footage, it's hard to watch at first. But then you kind of, there's an ebb and flow to it to where you can see stuff. And Gary McBride, through Kara and Gary, looked at that, saw that piece of video. Kara did a story about it or whatever. And then Gary got to sleuthing on it and called the MPD. Gary had found her badge number on her helmet or something. And that's how he figured out it was Lyle Morris. And at first, there was not so much video out there. But the more cases that happened, the more footage to get released out. And at this point, there's hundreds of body cams. I've watched them all. And there's literally, I think there's 30,000 hours out now on the House Rumble channel. And as at this point, they're not even releasing January 6th footage. They're releasing January 5th footage, the last 3 drops they've done. So I wonder if that's the last of the January 6th footage. Somebody should do a story about it, like somebody with a really big reach, because they are, you know, the whole country's screaming about, we want to see the footage, we want to see the footage. Well, it's out there. Like a month ago, They put out the footage of inside Congress where it's all going down, and then there's ATF there. I think some commando teams there. There's all. I think I got one shot of Nancy Pelosi's daughter running through the Capitol. Jaden X. All of it. It's all there, and in that release, you see even inside the Capitol, because most of the stuff I was involved with is outside. I never went in the Capitol. I never could. But inside the Capitol, what happens is they let everybody in at first, and then they let them walk around for 30 minutes, and then somebody gets a phone call. There's a radio communication made around 3:04. I could find it and play it if I had to. And this is when the cops changed. Somebody told them civil rights, we don't care. Do whatever you got to do. Push them out of the Capitol. And they did. They proceeded to violently attack people from that point forward because they felt like they could do it. And Corinne, you live in D.C. You've seen the climate protesters get out, stop traffic. The cops come over there with pillows, and very lightly touch them, but pick them up. Well, how come they didn't try to do that with us? You know what I'm saying? Why would they just start sticking them in the head if you want to? Just do whatever to get rid of them. We got a fraudulent election to certify. We got a coup to complete here today. And that's why they were able to get away with it.
How do people donate to you, Tommy? How do people donate to your legal defense fund?
Oh, listen, I'm gonna tell you, but I need you to help me with my Twitter account got locked yesterday.
What does that mean?
So I really think there's some kind of a technical error somewhere, but so I was sending everybody the story that Gateway Pundit did about me getting arrested.
Okay.
And if you try to message too many people, it thinks you're scamming somebody or a robot or whatever.
Okay.
So it locked my account for that reason, but now when I go to reset it, they can't find the account by the email address they use, so I'm kind of lost.
What?
I'm kind of lost. They can't. There's something going on. I don't really know what it is, but I'm gonna give them another 24 hours or so. But I have a GiveSendGo. I don't even know how to tell you where it is right this second. I think you should type in my name.
See if it works. See if you type in your name, it works.
Okay, I'm pulling up on another. You can't see me right this second. I had it pulled up. I'll tell you just a second. There it is. So I really like that the sheriff, the video you showed earlier, or that interview you did with that guy.
That's
I forget his
Sheriff
name.
Darleaf.
Look, and I
very
saw where
caring.
General Flynn shared that too, right?
Yeah.
That was a really good interview, and that's right up my alley. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna review it. Okay, so my number, my GiveSendGo.com is GB3D6.
That's hard. Say it again.
I gotta change that because I think you can. So it's GiveSendGo.com, GB3D6. G as in Gary, B as in boy, 3 as in 3 hot dogs, D as in dog, and 6 as in 6 hot dogs. And then I have my, if you go to @JackSmart007, I have my PayPal, Cash App, and Venmo there. You can see it in my bio. And are you still there?
Yes, I'm always here.
Okay, I was just making sure. I saw you having the other guys
Trying
lagging
to
out
be
earlier.
uncensored attention.
And I know I can ramble a lot because I feel like I could talk about January 6th forever.
But we could talk again. I just want you to get in perfect lighting. We can barely see you.
I'll do that. Oh, is it that bad on your end, really?
Yeah, we need perfect lighting.
I have a mini studio I'm in the middle of setting up, so it'll be better.
Yeah. You need to be in perfect lighting, and we can talk about everything. Because this is not ending. You think it's just going to end the second Trump wins in November?
I think the Democrats are going to try to do every dirty trick in the book to keep it from happening, but I think you would agree with me. We're Christians. This is meant to be. I have always felt like this thing with Roseanne for me was my destiny, because I went a really long time since I was 14. I kind of was called to be whatever at 14, and my whole family would be like, well, you're supposed to be a preacher, you're supposed to be a preacher. I'm like, no, that's just not what God has for me. But I could never figure it out, for 30 years, and then I realized what it was. That God had this calling on my life and knew what it was finally. So there's no way any man's going to tell me to not do what God's told me to do. So I just put my faith in God. If I have to go sit in jail because I told the truth about the government killing a woman, then so be it. But I'm not afraid.
Jacob Lang is sitting in jail. I don't want you sitting in jail. No one
Listen,
should
if
be
they'd come
sitting in
pick me
jail.
up and throw me in the gulag, I would probably be welcomed like a king. I'm just telling. I'm just being practical. I stood on the street corner for these guys for a year. I went to Congress. I did everything I possibly could, and I feel like if they let me in at DC Gulag, I could tell these guys a lot of stuff that would help them because I've seen how they keep their discovery from them. You know what I mean? I've seen.
That's huge. Say that again. The
I've seen how they-
judges in U.S.
Yeah.
federal court
I saw this one
keep
boy's
them
case.
away from their discovery.
There was literally this one case. I can't remember his name right now, but his trial was going on and he did not have his discovery. Right? Or they'll wait the night before or 3 days before your trial and dump 2 gigabytes of or terabytes of video evidence, knowing good and well the public defender doesn't care to go through it and probably too stupid to go through it, or C, don't know what they're looking at when they do. Because the DOJ, FBI, all those guys, they don't, on any particular case, they don't know what happened on January 6th. Their bosses gave them a picture of, January protester X, and here's 3 pictures where he looks like he might be doing something, crucify him. They don't look to see what happened that day. They don't look to see why that guy may be angry at a cop and screaming at him. You know what? The guy that's watched a cop kill a woman in front of him. But they won't let you talk about that. So,
Why are we putting up with this? Why are we allowing the
people are
judges
afraid.
in
People are
U.S.
afraid.
federal court to silence us?
People are afraid. I just think people are afraid. And that being said, their plan on January, it did not happen the way they wanted it to. I think they wanted a couple dead people that day. A couple dead congressmen, I think, would have made them very happy. And their comrades in the media already had the talking points. Remember, before the dust even settled that day, they're screaming insurrection, deadly insurrection. Remember all that? They had the language going down, but
They
and there was
had
yep, and the signaling. It was all together, all coordinated. But then Steve Baker has that story, and I think he has more on it coming out soon about there was a shoot to kill commando team there that day. I don't know if people realize what kind of a team this would be. Well, this would be like Navy SEALs, Army Rangers, whatever special forces, tier 1 operators, all-star team, right? The best the military has to offer. And I don't want to say too much about that. I do have my own theory. I kind of think that, and I'm just speculating, I kind of think that they were there to make sure an Antifa type or maybe some deranged Trump supporter, whatever, not that there were a lot there, but individually there were some crazy characters there, here and there, but to make sure nobody went too far and did too much. You know what I'm saying? And but I do think the CIA planned it through the Department of Homeland Security. The Department of Homeland Security is going to be the literal tier 1 operators in the crowd dressed up like a Trump supporter running an op. That's going to be a CIA. FBI are thugs. FBI are like the mafia's knee breaker or thumb breaker. If you don't pay us our money this month, Bruno is going to come down there and break your... They're not smart enough to set up an op like January 6th, but the CIA is. And this brings me to another point. The CIA, like these dirty spies who just swung the last couple presidential elections, involved in human trafficking and all of it, right? They should never be in charge of Navy SEALs, which is what it is. When the CIA runs those ops, like Special Collection Service, there's several names for them. This is the CIA has control of our soldiers, and a lot of the times, a lot of these CIA movies you watch are based in truth, to where the soldiers get stabbed in the back by the CIA officers, right, or whatever. But I think it was ran, and I'll tell you why I think this, through the Department of Homeland Security specifically, because Benny Thompson, my congressman, who's been, I've been told by a lady who works for an international sex trafficking ring that he was involved in the pedophile ring. This is part of my story. That Benny Thompson was charged of that committee. So what that means is he controlled the info, the intel. He controlled it all leading up to January 6th of the Department of Homeland Security agents, right? So then what happens at the end of it is Benny Thompson becomes the chair of the January 6th committee. Again, you see what he did with that control. He deleted all the evidence, right? I think this because when you go to court and a lawyer says, I want to know about all the agents there, FBI, DHS, whatever, I want it all. The DOJ says we're not responsible for any other agencies but the FBI. And if you know how Congress works, that's because the Judiciary Committee has direct oversight of the FBI, literally. And this goes back to 2001 when they changed all the government and created the Department of Homeland Security. They also created a Department of Homeland Security Committee that Benny Thompson was the chair of, right? So the DOJ says we don't have to give you any evidence of a Department of Homeland Security employee violating the Constitution and committing treason, even though we have it. So I think that's why it was set up that way.
Okay, we're in trouble, Tommy.
No, we
Trump
don't.
doesn't get back into the White House.
God's
Too many
got us.
people have gone to
I'm
prison.
gonna be honest with you. There's been Christians that have been set on fire, fed to lions, historically. If the worst thing we have to do is go sit in a jail cell to stand up for God, comparatively speaking, that's pretty easy.
Okay.
You know what I'm
Okay.
saying?
Okay. And Brandon Fellows, people who've been in prison for years, he comes out a stronger, better man.
You know, there's no. So this is the thing about being a J6er, is there's no shame associated that would be associated if I had robbed a bank, you know what I'm saying, or killed somebody, or did something worse, or so. There's no shame with it because we were doing an honorable thing, and just we walked peacefully and patriotically into a setup by the federal government. And now it's coming out that the military was involved with Milley committing treason. They're arguing about why the National Guard can't go down there that day. It was a coup. This was actually, I call it Americans Tiananmen Square. This was the completion of the coup that they started on Election Day. Or more precisely, when COVID came out, 9 months or before the election, and every Democrat starts talking about how we got to have mail-in voting for the election because COVID's going to give everybody the same flu it's been giving everybody for 3,000 years. So I know that's a lot.
We're gonna continue this.
Yep.
Next time
I know
we're
it's
gonna
late.
have you
You
better
had a very
lighting.
good
We're
show.
gonna
You had a
have
very
your
good-
Gibson
you had a very
Go
good-
ready.
Yeah, did I tell you? Can I send it to you? You can't pull it up on your end?
No, I can't do that right now because my
That'd be fine.
producer has disappeared.
You need a
My
producer?
producer is named Mr. Disappear.
Well, that's what they do.
No one can handle my Monday night show.
It is
Because
1
this
o'clock
is
in
the
the
show
morning.
where I just let you ramble on.
Do
and
you
you can talk
take
about
these?
anything
Do you
you
take
want.
these and edit them for later?
No, I just let it go.
If you had a
This is
full-time
raw
producer,
and
if you
real.
had a full-time producer, they would do that for you.
Oh, I know.
Take
I
our
don't have
conversation,
a
put a
full-time
2-minute
producer.
here. You
I'm
will one day.
poor.
Whenever
I
you're the
can't
head
afford-
anchor at 60 Minutes, you can have people do it for you. So we
What
need
did you just say?
I said whenever you're the head anchor at 60 Minutes,
Oh,
you'll
you
have
think
a producer.
CBS would ever hire me? You think 60 Minutes would ever hire me?
Well, I'm hoping that they wouldn't hire you the way they are now because they're communists. But if we have this revival of Christian patriotism,
Yes.
maybe they'll be
Yes.
honorable.
That's
You know
what
what
we
I'm saying?
need.
Hire some decent
We
people.
need a revival of Christian patriotism. And everyone needs to go buy the honey. Make
MAGA-
make honey. Make honey
Yeah,
great
honey
again.
great again.
Make
met that
honey
guy
great
once.
again.
Not the
Buy this
model,
honey.
but the guy who makes. Yeah, he's a real cool guy.
I love this guy. Todd.
MAGA honey
Buy
tastes
make
better than
honey
any
great
other
again.
honey.
It does have
Making honey.
Okay. I'm not a honey connoisseur.
Listen, put it
But
on your
this is
peanut
the
butter
best
sandwich.
honey.
Put it on
Make
your
honey
peanut
great
butter
again.
sandwich. Yes, ma'am.
I don't eat carbs. Oh my gosh.
What?
Hey, how's Hank Munzer? Everybody
I talked to Hank
called you when he got
earlier.
arrested, right?
Well, the FBI took my phone. I think they did try. By the
Okay.
time I made it home and could get to any source, because I had to drive home with no phone, people like some of my fans, like Scott McFarlane and Ryan Riley is weird. Like I got arrested, and NBC News is all about it, right? CBS, their little anchors are tweeting about it. I'm like, all right, well, fine. But it's been a long journey, and I think we're at the end of it. And I know I've never doubted, Corinne, that we win. You know what I mean? Like I never doubted.
I know we win. It's just
Sometimes
a
winning
lesson.
doesn't come the way we. Sometimes winning doesn't come the way we thought it would look. You know what I mean?
And Trump is just the next step. We have to clean up
Trump can
all
do
the
what his
cities
but you're right.
that have been
it's us.
taken
We gotta-
over by
You're right.
disgusting Democrat mayors like Jackson, Mississippi.
Yeah, he has like a almost an Islamic sounding name, Hufe something. But the deal with that guy is his
Can't
father
say
was
his
also
name,
married.
Tommy, because they'll probably put a hit on me. It's the Muslim Brotherhood that is the real problem. The Muslim Brotherhood is the domestic terrorist group that should be banned.
I think the
in the
CIA
United States of
created him.
America.
I know for a fact the CIA created them. CIA created Hamas. They admit it. And honestly, it sounds really bad, but there's two different versions of Islam that they were worried about, and you literally, the government does have to consider it. So you had these regional Muslims that wanted to run just their country, right? They wanted to be the dictator and warlord of, say, hypothetically, Saudi Arabia. But then there's the other Muslims, radical Muslims, who want to take over the world. They want a worldwide caliphate. So our government, the military, whoever looks at it and says, well, it's better that we get the guy who only wants to take over his country to help us fight the guy who wants to take over the world. So they'll prop him up, like CIA did with Osama bin Laden, and countless other places. It's all over the place. But we create all this.
I wish there were more whistleblowers. But I really want you to get in perfect internet. Because if you were in
Okay.
perfect internet, we could just ramble on and talk about everything. But there's a
We'll get it in the
backlash.
morning.
Can you hear me?
Is
Like
it?
when you hear my voice, it backlashes.
It sounds perfect. You sound perfect on my end. And my video does look dark, but it doesn't look that dark. But like I said, I have a solution for that.
Okay, so you're gonna build a studio in your current house, and you're gonna come back when you're really ready. I want to say S medium one says, Corinne, you have an echo. I love you, S medium one.
I don't
Please
hear
spell my
the
name
echo.
right. Corinne. There's an echo.
Oh, she gets so upset
Yeah.
about that. You better
There's
get
a
that
major
right.
echo. Hi,
Oh,
Greg.
I think I know what
Ward.
it is. Earlier, when I was complaining about an echo, Corinne, I had accidentally had two of these windows up, and that's why I was getting the feedback, the echo, because I had
Testing.
two web pages with my mic working. Does that
Oh
make
my gosh.
sense?
Okay, well now we have major feedback. So let's just stop this
Yeah, we're-
and continue
It's
on.
the NSA
When you
and the
have
CIA trying
perfect
to shut us
lighting.
down.
Yeah.
Thank
The
you,
people
Corinne.
at
I
Rumble
appreciate
tell me
you.
they get attacked all the time by cyber attacks. So who do you think the cyber attackers are? So you think the CIA just controls everything? They're not even supposed to work inside the United States
Inside
of
the
America.
country. I think we haven't had a since JFK. I think actually it started before JFK. You can look this video up on Rumble. It's called "Death at Bethesda," and it's about this guy who used to run the DOD in the 40s, right at the end of the war. It's like one day he learned something and freaked out, and they basically kill him. They kidnap him, stick him in a hospital, start saying he's crazy and stuff. So my point of bringing that up is I believe World War II, when we brought all these Nazis over here, did we really win World War II, or did we just bring a bunch of Nazis over here and they took over?
I mean, how am I supposed to respond to that? I'm not
Because that's what
turning
it
on
looks
the
like to
Jewish
me.
people.
I heard you talking about
I
that
will
earlier,
not
and I'll tell you,
turn
I'll tell you how I look at that. I'll tell
on
you how I
the
look
Jewish
at that.
people. I won't even turn on Muslim people. I
gonna
love
be
Jewish
very-
people. I love
You're
Muslims.
right.
I don't like radical people who don't follow the U.S. Constitution. United
I
States
agree.
of America is a blessed nation. I wish you were in DC for July 4th. Christians from around America are
DC,
coming into DC.
4th of
12
listen,
noon, July 4th. We're doing the National Day of Repentance, and we're going to be praying all day.
that's cool. That's cool, but I'll tell you, I was in DC for last year's 4th of July, and DC, 4th of July in DC is 6 hours to trauma. It explosions. It sounds like you're in a war, and it goes on for hours and hours and hours. You know what I'm talking about?
Well, it's just
Like
really
our
hot.
dog.
No, DC is amazing.
No,
But
the
I'm going to be
fireworks I had
alone
never seen.
with hundreds of Christians that I love. They're all flying to DC to pray
That would
for
be
you,
cool.
Tommy, to pray for Trump, to pray for the Christian revival in the United States of America, which
I
needs to
think it's
happen.
coming. I think it's
Yes.
coming.
Yes. Okay, good. I
And
like
was
to
just
end
gonna
on
say,
this.
I was just going to say along the lines of what you were saying. I've come to realize that in groups of human beings, if you want to segregate the Jews or the Muslims, there are good Jews and there are evil Jews. There are good Muslims and there are evil Muslims. And there are good Christians and there's some evil people who say they're Christians, right?
And there's good people who raise money
Hey,
for January 6 issues, and there's evil people who raise
But
money
my
for
point being
January
is
6
I
issues.
don't agree
And
with.
I'm keeping
I don't
track
agree-
of everything,
Yeah,
putting
I was
everybody
just
on
saying
high
that-
alert.
Yeah, I was just
Because I
saying that
get
because I
nothing
don't
out of
agree.
this.
I
I'm
know,
doing
but you're
this
doing what you
for
love.
righteousness.
You are.
I've known you
really
for
are.
3 years, Tommy.
hmm I remember the first day I met you, and people were coming up to you like podcasters, and I was like, "Corinne, are you famous?" You remember that? We were at Harry's, I think.
I'm
Because
famous
people
in
come
certain
up to
crowds.
you, like little kids were wanting you to teach them how to be live streamers and stuff. You remember?
Yes. And live streaming is now a legitimate career. When I started
Yeah.
live streaming on the streets of Beverly Hills in 2017, it wasn't respectable. I don't live stream anymore. I do really
I've
serious,
noticed that you don't.
hard, raw, real news. And if you can't handle
I
it,
notice you don't do a lot of. I notice you don't do live stream a lot anymore.
I don't live
I
stream
guess you're
anymore.
saving- You know, you
I do
take
really
so much.
hard, real news.
Well, look, that live streaming that was work though. That's hard to do that for hours.
Yes. You tried it for a little while in Washington, D.C. It's major
I could
work.
never get a good signal. I think the FBI and the CIA were jamming me.
I think they attack the iPhone and the Apple.
Yeah.
That's why you've got to switch to a phone they can't attack. But we'll go into that later.
I need to get a
I
USB
need to get you the
Patriot
clear
cable.
phone, Tommy. I need to send you this phone. You send me your address, I'll send you this phone. It's the clear phone. It's an Android.
Uh-huh.
And then you hook it up to phone. 123.com. You get the
Okay.
clear phone at clear.store, but I'll send you one for free. And then you hook it up to phone. 123.com.
I hadn't heard of that website before. I kind of
Yeah.
I've heard of the idea of these kinds of phones, but yeah.
Phone.
All I do is make phone
123.com.
calls
Look how
and
gorgeous
text some
the phone
people.
is. That's the clear
I thought it
phone.
was an iPhone at first.
No, this is the clear phone. And I will send you one. But you have to hook
Alright,
your
I know
phone
it's
service
late.
up to phone. 123.com. So you buy the clear
Good
phone
deal.
at clear.store, and then you hook it up to phone. 123.com, because they won't spy on you, and you, Tommy Tatum, are the poster boy for who
being
needs to
spied on.
have a secure phone. I mean, you're the poster boy for it.
Well, you know, I don't think it's so secure in the FBI's page. Like, look, they flew 2 special agents down here to get my telephone.
Whoa. Okay, we need to get you the clear phone.
Yes, because I'm using an iPhone XR right this moment.
No, we
And it
need to
doesn't
get
work
you
right.
the clear phone, and then you need to hook it up to phone. 123.com,
123.com.
because my very good friends own that company, and they won't let the feds spy on you, and you'll be secure.
Good deal.
Yes.
Well,
Okay, so
I know
text me your
it's-
address.
I will. I know it's late where you're at. You
Yeah.
wanna keep going there, or we
Time to
shutting
go.
it down?
No, we need you in perfect internet.
Yeah, I got you.
Next
I'm
time.
tired anyway. I've had a long
Perfect
week.
internet. Perfect lighting.
I'll
Okay.
take care. I promise. I
Okay.
promise you. The
Okay.
next time it won't be an issue.
Okay.
I had
Just
like a
go
really
on
good one.
Amazon and get the ring lights.
I have I may have some lights. You know, I love you, Corinne. Thank you for having me on.
God bless you.
Thank you.
God bless you. Everyone donate to Tommy Tatum. The FBI just arrested him on Wednesday, and they're pressing misdemeanor and felony charges on him. So you go to Give, Send, Go. Just donate whatever you can afford to donate to Tommy Tatum. If you have a problem, you can text me at 917-287-1314 while the unicorn phone is still turned on. I'm contemplating getting rid of the unicorn phone, but right now you can text me at 917-287-1314. I just want to tell you, this is my favorite water system in the world. This is Kingdom H2, and you press the little button and it puts hydrogen in your water. If you drink this water once an hour, your whole life will change. This is $200, 30% off if you use my code Corinne USA. Use my code Corinne USA. You go to Sherwood, SHERWOOD.TV, and you go to Corinne USA, put my code in here, buy the Kingdom H2 machine. You put any water you like into the machine every hour, you press the little button, it's gorgeous. It's hydrogen in your water and you drink it like that. It's gorgeous. This is amazing. And then, of course, you guys all know that I live and breathe the satellite phone at sat123.com. This is the phone that will save your life. Sat123.com. You just get it out there in the world, anywhere you go, and you make the satellite, you put the antenna towards the satellite. Sat123. The phone is free if you do the monthly, which is like, I don't know, $99 a month, and then you get 150 minutes, which you will definitely use because you want your privacy and you want to be able to use your phone wherever you are. So you go to sat123.com. And then, of course, the phone service is phone123.com. And I just have so much more to show you. I love the power bars. This is how I live all day long. This is the Kingdom Candy Power Bar. You go to sherwood.tv/Corinne, CORINNE USA, and buy the Kingdom Candy Power Bar. This is the most healthy power bar on the market. Oh my gosh, I got a rant. Did I get a rant? Did I get a Rumble rant? I'm so tired, y'all. I think it's so important to understand that there's really serious news going on. And, you know, you may think that my Monday night shows are long, but let me tell you, this is the show that I use for everyone to just come on and speak uncensored. And then from this show, I book people on other shows. I just use this show as my own little show so that I can book other people. Maybe it's time to change the name. The founder of America Happens and I were deciding that maybe we should change the name. Should I call the show Corinne Uncensored, Corinne Unredacted, The Real News? What should I call the new show? Live with Corinne. I just want to pray that everything good happens to you and that all evil stays away from you. Please join me. Eastern Standard Time, approximately 12 noon on July 4th, where we pray in front of the U.S. Capitol. Until then, go to clear.store, buy the Clear phone, and then use the service phone123.com. I'm doing like 10 shows this week, so catch me where you can find me. And if you need to reach me, you can text me, 917-287-1314. Please find it in your heart to donate. Independent journalists like me are few and far between. And we need as much as you can donate to find it in your heart, because it's going to be people like me that have to expose the true election corruption that's about to happen. If you want to donate to the America Happens Network, we need the big bucks because we're pretty much the only network that doesn't censor at all. We never censor. So prepare. Our founder, Vem Miller, is an incredible man, and he stands up for righteousness, and he never censors. So join me next Monday, 7 p.m. approximately Eastern Standard Time on the America Happens channel, on the America Happens Network at americahappens.com. America Happens on CloutHub. I love CloutHub. Everyone needs to join CloudHub. CLOUTHUB. CloudHub is the key to life right now. No censorship. Of course, Rumble is incredible. I love Rumble. And X. Hopefully you all will join us on X. I will see you for the next show. God bless you. Have a beautiful evening. Woohoo! I played the wrong one. I love this. This is like my favorite. Woohoo! I love that. Oh my gosh, I was just eating a piece of kingdom candy. It is very late. I love it when I do the wacky stuff. Sorry, this is just how much fun I have with this show. So I think it's time to change the show to, I'll name it Live with Corinne. Let's see, we're going to play the end song one more time and see if it works.